Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. RollerGator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
I have both had the dumbest week and the smartest week ever, depending on the tweets of the president that we should take into account. Depending.
Oh, really? That's good to hear. My week has been less catastrophic. All systems are go on this side, technologically speaking. Chrome hasn't been crashing every third click like it was last week. I didn't just shuffle all of the clips that I have for the week right before the show began, so we're off to a good start. Where everything is, knock on wood.
Yeah, the secret to continually improving trajectories to start with a very low base.
All right. Well, now, is there anything that you want to share about how good or bad your week has simultaneously been? Is this?
No, I'm just. This was a somewhat oblique joke about how everything is the deal is ready, it's done, it's settled, it's sealed. Oh wait, no, don't expect us to actually sign it this week, maybe tomorrow or yesterday. And then to top it off, apparently, reportedly, Americans are messaging to the Iranians that they're not to put any weight to Trump's tweets because they're meant for internal consumption. Anyway.
I mean, look, this entire not a war process has basically been, only a 15-minute certainty time period where it's only 15 minutes of language from the president or any sources before it gets inverted 180 degrees to the opposite, the opposite idea. So right. I've deliberately not included news from it because it's pointless. I
don't know if it's pointless, but anyway.
Well,
it is very resource consuming. Let's say to have any sort of reliable-ish, understanding of what's going on, because the superficial the superficial sort of evaluation is definitely fucked. Like there's no way you can just casually watch this.
I'm going to read the news and understand what's happening over there. No, you will not.
Yeah, let's check out what the press has to say about it.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, we don't have any awesome grandma stories to start off the podcast today, but we do have one small sort of modern nostalgia story. Okay, Alex. Now, I don't know what age you came over to the U.S. It was. I believe you were an adult though whenever you came over to the U.S. for the first time. So you did not. You did not.
Always with the Rammstein caveat. We were all living in America.
Ah, yes. Well, I don't know.
So I've consumed American culture from abroad without necessarily being
One aspect of American culture that I don't think you could have consumed involved actual physical locations that you went to as a child that people have buried into their memories with great nostalgia. The 30-somethings, the 40-somethings, and sometimes even the 50-somethings have a collective set of memories. Going to Blockbuster Video every week as a tradition is one of those memories that people have. And the other such memory that people have in broad spectrum is going to a Pizza Hut walk-in restaurant that had a very certain aesthetic. I don't know if you've seen the popular tweets over the years where people would comment, "This is what they took from us," whoever they are, but this is what they took from us. This nostalgia that they have for their childhood and the sort of communal memories that everyone shared of, let's say, going to their Sunday baseball practice or something like that, their softball practice, and then afterwards going to this Pizza Hut as a team and, maybe getting a personal pan pizza or whatnot. Well, it turns out that Yum Brands, the company that owns Pizza Hut, has decided to take this nostalgia seriously. And they have released, they have put out a news release here on their yum.com website. Retro Pizza Hut locations bring back red roofs, red cups, and nostalgic dining experiences. As consumers increasingly seek comfort, familiarity, and connection, nostalgia is making a comeback in the restaurant industry, and Yum Brands is getting in on the game. From the decades menu at Taco Bell to the return of potato wedges at KFC, Pizza Hut is leaning into the trend in an even bigger way. A recent Today segment highlighted how classic restaurant brands are reviving retro designs and experiences that remind guests of family dinners, birthday celebrations, and memorable nights out. Across 155 Pizza Hut restaurants in the United States, guests are rediscovering iconic features from the brand's earlier years, including red cups, checkered tablecloths, cozy vinyl booths, Tiffany-style lamps, classic arcade games, and even the unmistakable red roof design. From TikTok to Instagram, pilgrimages to these nostalgic locations are driving comments and conversation. Families are traveling from neighboring towns and sometimes neighboring states to experience the retro-inspired restaurants firsthand. For many guests, the experience goes beyond pizza. It's about reconnecting with memories of gathering around the red checkered tablecloth-covered table with friends and family. As the saying goes, what's old is new again. The renewed interest in nostalgic food and experiences reflect a broader public cultural trend. In Collider Lab's 2026 Food Trends Report, consumers describe turning to food for small, sensory, everyday acts that provide comfort, emotional grounding, and a sense of control in an increasingly chaotic world. For many guests, revisiting a classic Pizza Hut dining room offers exactly that, a familiar experience that feels authentic, comforting, and sparks memories of gathering around the table with friends and family. For Pizza Hut, these classic elements represent more than decor. They celebrate the brand's heritage while reminding guests why Pizza Hut became part of so many family traditions in the first place. As the retro revival continues, these locations are helping introduce a new generation of fans to the timeless Pizza Hut dine-in experience. Now, there is nothing along the lines of Blockbuster Video making a similar comeback, Alex. So don't get too excited. You're not going to be able to recreate the full experience of getting a personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut and then go rent something at the Blockbuster Video, perhaps a video game or a scary movie. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess my comment is that the Pizza Hut that created those original experiences would never have put out a press release like this.
There would not have been an internet, I think, at the time. Well, there might have been an internet depending on what portion of the time period, but it would have been it would have had some sort of animated GIF of a dog running back and forth of a GeoCities type background.
Yes. Marquee text and blink tags. Yes.
Yes. Those were the good old days, Alex. That was the.
That's when I learned HTML, man.
with a free Kevin Mitnick icon somewhere to be found.
Anyways, now we've lost everybody. No, I guess what I mean is that there's a parallel. I mean, I'm sure the pattern is as old as time, but there's a similar sort of effect that it occurs from time to time. In whenever there's glories of the past. So, for example, I remember when I was growing up in Greece, there's a lot of, as understandably, right, this is not going to surprise you, but there's people who are saying, back in the days of the ancients, we were doing a lot better, so we should do more of that, whether it's like reviving the ancient Greek language or studying more or doing philosophy. I don't know, whatever.
Return, as they say, return.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's the Greek version of the return meme, right? Like, it doesn't matter. You can always go back in time wherever you are and find some golden age. The point is that those people back then were not returning to anything. Right? Mm-hmm. They were just being themselves. You are LARPing by definition. It's not the same. You can't step in the same river twice just to do my thing and quote an ancient Greek philosopher. Anyway, yeah. So I guess it's fun, but it's not. It's not what they say it is. If you like LARPing, go and do it. But it's not. You're not actually going to be back in the 70s. I hate to ruin it for everybody.
Well, Alex, there's no good transition to the next early topic here that we have today, but I must say that between you and I, if we had to pick one of us to be responsible for these unfoldings, you are the person who is responsible for this next unfolding, because
oh my God.
as the resident Elon fan here. You are the Elon fan, the Elon expert, the person who admires him the most between us. You are responsible for keeping tabs on him and keeping him in line and making sure that he doesn't make mistakes as he, wanders out in the world doing what he does. And one such mistake that he has made is now releasing more videos that are causing a bit of a kerfluffle on the internet. Miss Ashley St. Clair, his most recent, to my knowledge, baby mama, has decided that she's no longer one of the conservative-leaning influencers on the internet. She is now a left-leaning influencer and is on a somewhat of an anti-Elon tirade. And in this current batch of information, she has some information about the last federal presidential election that she'd like to share.
And then October rolls around. And in October, Elon tells me that he is ready to release his, in his words, anomaly in the Matrix. And I am like, oh, like, who's that? And he says that he has 10,000 lasers in space, referring to his satellites. I say, because I am like rather uncomfortable and I know the gravity of what he's trying to tell me right now, I say, wow, finally a focus on the Jewish vote. He keeps going and he says, this is not this is not a piece that they'll see on the chessboard. And I straight up tell him, I say, I would ask more, but I really don't want to be deposed. To which he says, very wise. Shortly after that, he's involved with America PAC and all of this other stuff, and he's sending me some internal data from America PAC, real-time Delta vote metrics. And I am just like, how the fuck do you have this sort of data? You don't get this from door knocking, because that was one of my first jobs in politics was in campaigns and cleaning up this bad data from door knocking, because the vendors that America PAC is using at this point is a vendor that hires Craigslist crackheads for door knocking. And I wish I was exaggerating there, but I'm not. I know, like, I have caused harm with my rhetoric. However, I never sought out to cause harm. Like, there were parts of me that really wanted the best for the country, for America, for democracy. And one thing is I have always hated big tech. So then to have arguably the most powerful man in the world who is sending me things about using his space technology in the election. I should also say that I have all of this backed up with many people with explicit instructions should anything happen to me, okay? But this was something that I was internally wrestling with while publicly not really showing that I was having any of these internal ethical conflicts with myself regarding this information. And then on election night itself, Elon, left Mar-a-Lago early. I was at Mar-a-Lago and he told me over text, he's like, yeah, I knew hours ago that Trump won. My team has the best real-time data anywhere. First of all, how the fuck do you have real-time data on elections? How do you have real-time data? I could not understand that. I don't know that I ever will. I saw some shit, guys. I saw some shit, and I'm fighting really hard to keep my voice because I saw shit that impacts everyone. And if I was self-interested, I have been offered the self-interested deal to shut up and not talk about anything. But what I can tell you is I've not been offered certain deals just because I know that he's weird, okay? I saw some shit.
Now, Alex, I would not say that she gave enough details or information to actually create a story that was coherent for people like me. But since most people are not like me, I can't gauge what people have taken away from this. But I do see that several people have sort of believed that she has more to show and that somehow this involves one of the early conspiracies that came out from the last election, which was that Elon Musk, through his satellites, somehow manipulated the outcome of the presidential election. And that's, I believe, what she is attempting to allude to in the same vein, just, without any articulation or details that, for someone like me would be relevant. But that was making the waves earlier this week, and I do think you need to apologize for sleeping on the job there, making sure that he didn't stick his dick in crazy. You really you really missed on
oh, my
on
friend,
that job responsibility.
That is you're putting a lot on me, and I mean a lot.
Sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, first of all, as you say, if you want to find a reasonable explanation for what he was saying, besides, like, I don't know, like, dude tries to impress women he's sleeping with, I guess, I mean, that's pretty straightforward by being, creative with the truth, I guess. Like, he does have tens of thousands of space lasers, it's true. They are in space and they are exchanging lasers with each other. So he has Starlink. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Like, take the word space lasers out and put in Starlink.
Yes.
Okay, now it's suddenly it's a lot more. I mean, don't get me wrong, Starlink's amazing, right? It's very space age technology, but it's a lot more commonplace than space lasers. All right, so how did he use Starlink to influence the election? Who knows? If that's the implication, and it's not extremely clear that that's the implication.
Well, she's seen some shit. You see,
she's seen
some shit.
She's had a baby. Trust me, whoever has had a baby has seen some shit. It's just how it goes. It's just how it goes. Yeah, I don't know. I find fascinating, right, that a couple of things here. First of all, this is a woman that was in what's the word? In good standing among conservative commentator land. Until, I don't know, a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And suddenly she's like flipped to whatever the game she was playing was. Then she apologized for causing harm to Elon's son/daughter with her rhetoric or whatever. Mm-hmm. She also said that there was a part of her that was hoping for the best of America, and that makes you wonder what the other part was hoping for. But I guess to use this to bridge a thought that I've been having recently, I don't know what you think about that. I've said before how, for example, conspiracy theorizing, right, mm-hmm. is something that is both condemned and accepted by each side, depending on the topic, right? So you can't, for example, mm-hmm. conspiracy theorize about Trump being influenced by Israel, but you can say things about the vaccines to certain commentators. And in reverse to other commentators, right? Everybody has the conspiracies they don't see as conspiracies. Really, it's just, logical inference and other things that are like completely unacceptable. How dare you? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I've the way my brain sort of after struggling with it for years, my brain just spat out a thing that is echoing in my head now as I hear this woman try to make good on the other side of the political spectrum and saying some things that may or may not be true, but definitely she feels more comfortable saying them anyway, is that mm-hmm. conspiracy theorizing is what you do to your enemy.
Okay, you don't conspiracy theorize about a friend. That's not acceptable. That's not okay. How dare you say the president does not have agency, right? The president? Well, I mean, you just said that about the previous president. Yes, but not this president, right? But basically, you are allowed to make wild accusations about the enemy. Oh, they rigged the election. Who's they, right? It depends on which election, right? If we're talking about Al Gore or, George Bush or Trump or Musk or Biden or whatever, like it's, everybody's on different sides of that. I guess you and me are both consistent, which is to say that we think that election interference is a lot easier than most people think and probably more prevalent, I guess. Anyway, so, I don't know. I don't know what you think about this frame, that conspiracy theorizing is something you do to the enemy. And with this frame, you can predict who will be, tolerant to which conspiracy theory.
Well, on a sort of parallel question, do you think Elon has learned his lesson about selecting future incubators?
I doubt it.
No, okay, all right. Okay.
Frankly, between I mean, right. I don't know. Maybe like in certain ways, but not like maybe his non-disclosure agreements are better, for example, or stuff like that.
Okay,
but yeah, I don't know about the object level.
Okay, well. I just wanted to let you know that is what Miss St. Clair is going on about this week. She is trying to claim that he is the responsible solely through with shenanigans to putting Trump in the White House, is the loose allegation that she didn't explicitly state. But she's seen some
trust
shit.
The plan, man. Trust the plan. She's coming out with more.
She
coming
also
any day now.
She did say that she has a dead man switch though, so that's good. I'm glad that she knows about a dead man switch.
It's backed up with multiple people. If anything happens to me, man.
Yeah. If anything happens. Yeah, now. Yeah.
In a space laser safe protocol, I assume.
As we continue to move on the early stories here that don't exactly have great segues, just sort of spitter spatter over the place. This is from justice.gov. The former DOJ attorney indicted for concealment and theft of government records. Now, this is not that interesting of a story, but for one aspect of it that we will get to, Alex. Carmen Mercedes Lineberger, 62, of Port St. Lucie, has been indicted in federal court for 2 counts of theft of government money or property valued less than $1,000, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, and concealment, removal, or mutilation of public records. John P. Heekin, United States Attorney of the Northern District of Florida, announced the charges. The indictment alleges, at the time of the offenses, the defendant served in the Managing Assistant United States Attorney of the Fort Pierce branch of the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. In separate instances, in late 2025, the defendant altered the electronic file names of government records that she received in her official capacity as the MAUSA in order to conceal her unauthorized electronic transmission of those records to personal email accounts belonging to her without being detected. The altered government records included a document compiled by the defendant consisting of portions of internal DOJ electronic messages and an internal DOJ memorandum and a DOJ report related to a criminal prosecution in the SDFL that had been court-ordered to remain under seal and prohibited from distribution or disclosure outside of DOJ. As alleged in the indictment, the defendant concealed her actions by saving electronic copies of the government records in question under the misleading file names Chocolate Cake Recipe and Bundt Cake Recipe before electronically transmitting those records to her personal email accounts. As the DOJ report, the indictment further alleges that the defendant acted knowing that her transmission of the record outside DOJ directly violated the court order and impaired the proper administration of the underlying criminal prosecution. Lineberger appeared in federal court today for her arraignment before Southern District of Florida Chief United States Magistrate Judge William Matthewman in West Palm Beach, Florida. If convicted, Lineberger faces up to 20 years imprisonment for destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, 3 years imprisonment for concealment, removal, or mutilation of public records, and up to 1 year imprisonment on each count of theft of government property valued less than $1,000. So, Alex, be careful if you receive from inside the government just some file names, chocolate cake recipe or bundt cake recipe. They might not be what you're hoping for. You might not have a recipe at all, and we'll have to just Google one from, let's say, Sarah Lee or something.
What I got from this is that if the Walgreens in San Francisco wants to get some actual legal protection against people taking their shit, all they need to do is to turn themselves into a government company.
I mean, listen, this is the DOJ attorney, and you'd think that they would have some better ideas on how to sneak these types of documents out. Like, they're on the inside probably typically prosecuting cases that involve this type of stuff. So they know from that side of the adversarial process what the investigations can look for and would look for, right? So you'd think that it might be a little bit more sophisticated than just renaming something chocolate cake recipe.
Well, or again, they know that this is the sort of thing you do to the enemy, so she was reasonably sure that she would never be exposed to it. This sort of
possibly, maybe.
Right. So long as she didn't, do something stupid like name it confidential government records.pdf, she was gonna be fine. At least this might have been the. That there would be simple filters, right? Keyword filters, but nobody would take a deliberate look at her actions or anything.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know if this is a helpful way to think about it.
This next disconnected story, Alex. Arcadia mayor accused of being Chinese foreign agent strikes deal with feds and resigns. This is from the LA Times. The mayor of Arcadia, facing charges of acting as an illegal foreign agent of China, has reached an agreement to resolve the case, according to federal plea agreement unsealed Monday. Eileen Wong, who was elected to the city council in November 2022, entered a plea agreement with prosecutors over charges that she acted under the control of the People's Republic of China to promote propaganda in the U.S. between 2020 and 2022, according to unsealed court filing. Wong, who admitted to all charges in the plea agreement, is scheduled for arraignment Monday afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. Her lawyer declined to comment. The maximum sentence for the charge is 10 years in prison. From late 2020 through at least 2022, Wong worked with Yaoning Mike Sun, who was her fiancé at the time, to run a website called U.S. News Center that branded itself as a news source for Chinese Americans, according to the agreement. Both Wong and Sun executed directives from Chinese government officials, posting requested articles and reporting back with screenshots showing how many people viewed the stories, according to the unsealed agreement. On June 10th, 2021, the agreement says Wong received a message from a government official about China's stance on the Xinjiang issue. At the time, the Chinese government was carrying out a campaign of incarceration, persecution, and re-education of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. Quote, "There's no genocide in Xinjiang. There's no such thing as forced labor in any production activity, including cotton production. Spreading such rumor is to defame China, destroy Xinjiang's safety and stability," read the message from the Chinese government official, according to the plea agreement. Minutes after receiving the link, Wong posted the article on her website and responded to the Chinese government official with a link to the article on her website, according to the court filing. Quote, "So fast. Thank you, everyone," the government official responded, the court records show. Prosecutors also say Wong edited articles at the request of officials and shared information showing the reach of the posts. Quote, "Thank you, leader," she wrote on August 20th, 2021, after being complimented for a post that was viewed more than 15,000 times, according to the plea agreement. Wong never disclosed that the Chinese government had directed her to post the content, according to court documents. Prosecutors charged Sun in December 2024 with the conspiracy and acting as an illegal agent of a foreign government. Wong said her relationship with Sun ended in the spring of 2024. Sun had also served as campaign manager for her city council campaign. Prosecutors accused Sun and his Chinese government contacts of cultivating Wang in hopes that she would rise in politics and help them strengthen China's influence in California. Quote, "We broke up the fiancé relationship," Wong told the city council after he was charged. "We keep the friendship." Facing calls for her resignation at the time, Wong had vowed not to step away from the council, emphasizing she was not responsible for the actions of others. Wong said in a 2024 interview that she moved to Southern California from China 30 years ago. Her mother was a Chinese medicine and acupuncture doctor, and her father was a physician in Sichuan province before working at USC, she said. So, Alex, would you agree that if any government is going to tell reporters what to write in their news stories, it's going to be the U.S. government and not some foreign government. You have to register for that explicitly.
Well, I mean, depends which foreign government. But yes, other than that.
Now, Alex, did you want some good news? You want some good news?
I like the desert misses the rain. Yes, please.
Well, do you recall prior to the COVID pandemic, Sam Harris was talking with our good friend Brett Weinstein, where he had specified that if you had a case of super Ebola where the death rate was like 75%, the infectious death rate was like 75%, then you could possibly justify some draconian governmental measures to try to tamp down on the infection spread.
Yes, I do.
Do you remember that during COVID, none of those infectious death rates approached anywhere near 1% in majority of age brackets, and yet Sam Harris still wanted all the draconian policies that he advocated for at the 75% Ebola level?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Urban Ebola. Yep.
Well,
AKA COVID.
You also remember that on one of the podcasts, I think the guy's name is Tom Bailu, that Sam Harris made the argument that had everything been different during the COVID pandemic, he would have been right and everyone else would have been wrong. Had all the details been different?
In many places, including that one, yes. That was the one where he talked about, imagine them stacking coffins of babies in the parks, right? That was the one.
Well, we got good news. Ebola outbreak, now third largest recorded and spreading rapidly. He might get his day in the sun. The Ebola outbreak.
Finally stack those coffins, baby.
The Ebola outbreak erupting from the Ituri province of the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to escalate wildly, with cases nearing 750, deaths reported at 177, and around 1,400 contacts now being traced. The World Health Organization reported in a press briefing Friday. The latest numbers already place the outbreak as the third largest on record, though it was only first reported a week ago, May 15th. And the WHO Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said the outbreak is still spreading rapidly. A revised WHO assessment has moved the risk level from high to very high at the national level, while risk remains high at the regional level and low at the global level, Tedros added. WHO officials have acknowledged that a delay in detecting and responding to the outbreak enabled it to balloon, and they are now racing to get ahead of the virus. WHO representative Dr. Ann Ansia spoke during today's briefing at the DRC, saying that when officials got to the area, they found the virus was already rampant and silently disseminating for a few weeks already. In the outbreak investigation so far, the earliest known suspected case was in a health worker who developed symptoms on April 24th in Bunia, the capital city of Ituri. WHO only got word of a potential outbreak on May 5th, with news of a cluster of deadly unidentified infections that led to deaths in 4 health workers. By the time a WHO team arrived, there were already 80 cases. Now we are sprinting behind the virus so that we can really try to control this outbreak, and because it is still transmitting for the time being, yes, the number of cases will keep rising, and for some time we are really able to put all the response operations in place. Their work is made harder by various challenges. The virus behind the Ebola outbreak is the uncommon Budibogo virus, which doesn't have established vaccines or therapeutics. That leaves active case finding, isolation, and contact tracing as the primary tools to halt the spread. Moreover, the virus is spreading in areas with armed conflict, intense population mobility, weak health systems, and where millions face acute hunger and need humanitarian assistance. As WHO and other partners scramble to prevent more deadly infections, public health experts in the U.S. are criticizing the Trump administration's role. The U.S. had long been a global leader in Ebola responses in the region, but that is no longer the case given the Trump administration's demolition of the U.S. Agency for International Development, severe cuts in the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, numerous public health leadership roles vacant, and complete withdrawal from the WHO. In a New York Times opinion piece Thursday, Craig Spencer, an emergency medicine doctor and Brown University professor who contracted Ebola while treating patients in Guinea in 2014 with Doctors Without Borders, wrote that the U.S. has abdicated its longstanding role as a leader in global health and humanitarian response. Quote, "I know how destructive the disease can be and how unprepared we are for its return," he wrote. He noted reporting from the Times finding that the delay in detecting the outbreak was in part due to samples from infected patients being transported to a national lab in Kinshasa, Congo, at the wrong temperature. That task had previously been managed by USAID. The Times also reported that the U.S. previously played a crucial role in logistics in delivering supplies, notably personal protective equipment such as face shields, respirators, impermeable coveralls, and surgical hoods, supplies that health workers in DRC lacked for the weeks starting the outbreak. Quote, "My heart is breaking for those workers," Megan Fotheringham, who was USAID's Deputy Director of Infectious Diseases, including during the Ebola outbreak in Italy between 2018 and 2020. Quote, "They are not protected, and we are putting their lives on the line." She told the Times that USAID was able to continue its work. It could have moved stockpiles of personal protective equipment within hours. Spencer noted that he and the others often refer to Ebola as a disease of compassion because it spreads via bodily fluids to those who have intimate contact with victims. This means parents taking care of their sick children, family members who wash the bodies of their dead relatives, and healthcare providers who take care of patients at the most contagious stage of their illness, he wrote. He recalled a family of 7 being infected, with the parents caring for their children when battling the disease themselves. Only the parents survived. Epidemiologist Caitlin Jatalia and Emily Smith pointed out Friday that while the disease is one spread by compassion, this outbreak seems to be spreading by the global withdrawal of it. In a CDC press briefing Friday morning, Satish Pai, incident manager for CDC's Ebola response, said that the U.S. is ramping up resources and sending more field staff to the outbreak area. The Trump administration has also said it's funding the establishment of up to 50 treatment clinics in Ebola-affected regions of the DRC and Uganda. But Uganda, which has only reported 2 imported cases from the DRC, responded by saying it was not aware of any such plans. Pillai again dodged questions on why an American doctor infected with the outbreak and another exposed were sent to Germany and the Czech Republic, respectively, and not to the U.S. He also skirted questions about the U.S.'s travel restrictions, which have been criticized by public health experts. With the U.S. withdrawal from global health, the WHO has struggled to make up for the loss of funding and support. At the end of the press briefing, WHO officials were asked what the Ebola outbreak response was expected to cost and if the agency would have enough funds to cover it. Epidemic and Pandemic Management Director Maria Van Kerkhove said the agency is still working on an estimate, but added that while funding was a challenge right now, the focus shouldn't be on response costs. Quote, "There's billions of dollars that are spent on war every single day," Van Kerkhove said, "so there's plenty of money that can be handled for this. And what is extremely frustrating is that the money will come for a response. But what we actually need money for is prevention, this constant steady stream of funding to support national governments in the capacities that they have across surveillance, detection, research, infection prevention, control, workforce building, and trust in communities, etc., regularly, as opposed to going into cycles of panic and neglect." So, Alex, if Sam Harris gets his way, he will have a bona fide major Ebola epidemic that he can justify really draconian government policies to stomp out. I hope that is the good news you were expecting this week.
Well, in the interest of balance, here's a tweet I've sent to you via DM from Emily Kopp, who says, "Many reasons to be grateful. USAID is nowhere near the latest Ebola outbreak."
All right.
USAID contractor MetaBiota. That MetaBiota is, of course, the company that Hunter Biden had invested in by his VC firm. MetaBiota made the 2014 Ebola outbreak worse with faulty tests, bad biosafety, a lab strewn with needles. So after they left, they basically kind of just abandoned shit in, complete chaos. USAID also abandoned a bunch of coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab pre-COVID. I feel like this adds the appropriate amount of balance.
Excellent.
To the thing you read. So I guess the thing is, like, what strikes me here is that, the virus is like sort of the background music, the sort of the elevator music to the bad Elon, bad Trump. They took USAID away from us, right? Some people are dying, whatever. Tedros says the risk is low for the rest of the world, which, by the way, when you read that, is the first point I started to actually worry about it.
Are you saying that Mr. Tedros over there is a counter indicator? Is he a contra signal? That if he thinks everything's going to be okay, we're all going to die?
All I'm saying is that my Pavlovian instincts have been tuned through a long and lengthened pandemic to react this way for reasons that are beyond my control.
Now, I'm not aware of any polymarket items for this Ebola virus and whether or not there's like a death count, over under on polymarket or not. But I guess in the ways that we do, we will monitor the situation and keep you up to date on whether Sam Harris is looking for a revival on his 75% infectious death rate.
Yeah, I mean, just to expose myself to further humiliation as all this develops, I will say that my initial sense is that this is probably another monkey flu or whatever, monkeypox, right? Like the problem with the original COVID pandemic is that they do this all the time, and they had been doing this all the time. So when they, public health is a boy that cries wolf structurally. Now, there is the occasional wolf, which they may or may not have created. But that doesn't really change the fact that, they're a boy who cries wolf, except in their case, their wolf cry sounds like, give me more money. But in their language, it means there's a virus.
Well, you have to support all of the wolf precautionary protection systems.
That's right. The wolf prevention and control protocols need money, man. Like, who's going to prevent all those wolves from coming that we're telling you about all the time?
Exactly.
If it wasn't from us, the world would not have reacted such as to prevent the wolves that we've been crying about.
Now, moving forward, Alex. Moving forward,
I have to say, I'm sorry to be glib about this. It's just an artifact of the absolute destruction of the information system that I'm just unable to take this seriously until more information comes in from
listen,
sort of obviously agenda-driven venues.
Last week's wolf was the hantavirus, right? That was the infectious disease that everyone was scared about last week. So, this one's Ebola. That's the everlasting, evergreen, scaremonger is Ebola.
Can we have Ebola? How we have Black History Month? Can we have a public health funding month where they can just put all of their fear-mongering in 1 month and at least leave the other ones alone? Or is that what we're having?
Well, I mean, listen, there is probably some room where we can dedicate individual days to individual diseases, like, Ebola Awareness Day or something along those lines, because we have a lot of, ancillary ones, things that aren't very important, like, National Potato Chip Day. I think we can just replace maybe National Potato Chip Day with something like National Ebola Awareness Day. And then we'll be aware of it that day, and then no other time.
I have checked Ebola in Kalshi, not Polymarket.
Okay, all right.
And you'll be glad to know that there is the markets give 54% to Rwanda to report an Ebola case this year, and 45% to Kenya. So there you have it.
Now, as far as perverse incentives go, Alex, do you think that there might be any perverse incentives for someone to try to make an outbreak happen in those locations?
Normally, I would say absolutely not. However, given that I've been around this year, I can't rule it out, man. I don't know.
All right. I think what you need to do is,
if you look at it from upside down land, this is basically a bounty, isn't it?
It could be considered a bounty. However, because the market is open, knowing that the area you live in has such a bet going on means that you can have at least some knowledge that you're now at risk by an actor trying to profit off of the scenario. So you can choose wisely.
Right, it's both a bounty and a bounty warning. Yes.
It's like, okay. Yes. All right, Alex. Now, last week we did a segment where I introduced to you several stories from that week where female teachers were arrested for engaging in illicit sexual behavior with underage individuals. And I told you that I was doing this because I needed to demonstrate to you that this was something I was legitimately seeing all the time. And we have another segment of this week. And interestingly enough, Alex, we start the segment with a return of a teacher who was arrested again and was also arrested last week that we included. So Maris Nichols, This is from the New York Post. A Georgia science teacher already charged with having sex with a student in a classroom closet has now been accused of abusing 5 other teens. This was a person who was in last week's story roundup, Alex, who is again in this week rearrested, including a girl.
Regulars now. Is this what's happening?
Yes. You may remember Maris Nichols fondly, allegedly having sex in a Hummer, possibly giving one too, as well as at a golf course parking lot. Maris Nichols, 25, was rearrested Thursday, nearly 2 weeks after she was first charged with sexually assaulting a student at least twice in the school closet, as well as a parked Hummer, 11 Alive reported. She was hit with 11 new charges, including child molestation, evidence tampering, and grooming involving 5 new accusers, at least one of whom she allegedly also had sex with in a public spot. The now suspended teacher at Alexander High School in Douglasville, where she was also a football operations manager, allegedly romped with the boy in his car at a golf course just a day after she's accused of having sex with the first accuser in his Hummer. She's also accused of sexting other teens about the sex acts she fantasized over, even using a sex toy during video calls with at least 2 teens under 16, according to an arrest warrant obtained by WAGA. Nichols allegedly also sent nudes to a girl and encouraged her to watch the 50 Shades of Grey franchise before asking to discuss the raunchy flicks. Just 3 days before her first arrest, she ordered some of the teens she sexted to delete their communications, the warrant said. The complaint did not say how old the alleged victims were beyond the fact that they were all teenagers. At least 4 were students at Alexander High School, where Nichols had been hired in May 2023. Quote, upon learning of the alleged misconduct, the district immediately launched an investigation. Student safety is the district's highest priority, the Douglas County school system said in a letter to parents. The alleged behavior is unacceptable and violates the professional standards all employees are required to uphold. Nichols graduated from Liberty University, a private evangelical Christian school linked with the Southern Baptist Convention of Virginia, known for its strict fraternization policy under which students are expected to abstain from sexual activity outside of a biblically ordained marriage, according to its website. So, Alex, we already, just 2 weeks into doing this as a segment, have repeat offenders. Now, I don't know how that skews the statistics that I've sort of been vaguely asking about, which is how often this happens. I think one person accounting for 5 in the broad spirit of the statistics is really one teacher. And so it's not 5 instances that we would count because, of course, I expect male students to do that and be game for that type of activity more so than I expect the female teachers to be seeking it out. But would you be surprised to learn, Alex, that the repeat offender is not all of the stories we have in this lineup this week?
I guess not. Now that you put it that way.
Well, now we move on to another.
Police investigate claims a middle school art teacher enticed students with drugs and sexual conversations on social media. Investigators call it child grooming. NBC5's Maria Guerrero has more.
According to police, last week, multiple students here at Barbara Bush Middle School in Irving came forward with disturbing allegations against an art teacher.
Tonight, 28-year-old Haley Krista Radabaugh faces charges of child grooming, a third-degree felony. According to an arrest warrant, students told a school resource officer that Radabaugh, an art teacher, was known to be having inappropriate sexual conversations with at least 3 middle school students and providing drugs to students. A 14-year-old boy said that on May 13th, Radabaugh began sending sexually suggestive messages on Instagram, allegedly messaging, "There was a kid I crushed on hard before you. And I'll tell you what, you send me a picture of you and I'll send you one of me." Investigators say Radabaugh then sent a photo of what appears to be herself getting out of the shower. Police say the photo's angle is mid-chest up and appears to show her entire face. While not a nude photograph, police say it appears she is nude given her exposed shoulders. Charging documents state Radabaugh used flirtatious kiss emojis and called the victim babe. According to the arrest warrant, the victim described himself as being disgusted and losing sleep after the defendant messaged him.
Most of the time, child abuse happens with somebody that you would never imagine would hurt a child. So it's usually somebody that's very trusted. So it's really easy to dismiss those red flags.
Katia Gonzalez with Alliance for Children is not involved in the case, but helps law enforcement investigate and help victims of child abuse across Tarrant County. Whether well-intentioned, social media friendships, she says, are inappropriate, noting risk factors of abuse now include electronic grooming dynamics, gaining trust, isolating their victims via text or social media.
We see a lot of our cases that actually led to sexual abuse started out with electronic communication.
Carrollton Farmers Branch only confirming Irving police are investigating the now former employee, adding, while we are limited on what we can disclose, we are deeply distressed and disheartened by these incidents. Maria Guerrero, NBC5.
Now, Alex, that is, let's say, the first original one for this week, but number 2, if we're counting the repeat offenders. How many more would you guess I have to discuss this week? If you had to shoot for a number, just throw the dice out there.
3.
Say this. You know what? Congratulations. We do have 3 more of these stories to make a total of 5 teachers this week.
And wait, so have you been looking for the opposite pairing with the same methodology?
No. I'm specifically only focused on the female teachers for the anomalous sort of factor, or at least the socially understood to be anomalous factor of this. Like the male teachers are typically viewed as predatory, right? There's a sense that if you see a male teacher, you failed to filter out a predator from the pool. But the female teachers, by contrast, I believe it is broadly accepted, socially speaking, they are less predatory in nature, and therefore,
Yeah, let's say the pitchfork brigade is just harder to come out.
Yeah, and so
people are just like, maybe the police will come after you, but
I find them more interesting of a phenomenon.
Protest.
More interesting of a phenomenon, because there's several layers that you need to like have explained to you as to how that sort of occurs, particularly when it gets to the more disturbing younger ages of the student victims. So we move on now to the third story of the week. Riverside County teacher arrested for allegedly molesting one of her students. A Riverside County charter school teacher was arrested on Friday for allegedly sexually assaulting one of her students, according to authorities. Samantha Josephine Watson, 41, of Eastvale, was booked at the Robert Presley Jail on Friday on suspicion of sending harmful material to a juvenile, oral copulation, and digital penetration, according to a news release from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. Deputies said that they were made aware of allegations of inappropriate contact with a student at the school of Moreno Valley in January 28, 2026. While investigating the allegations, investigators learned that during the time frame of 2017 to 2018, the suspect was having inappropriate contact with a student while she was employed as a teacher. While they did not explicitly name the school where Watson was a teacher, they said she was working at a charter school located in the 2300 block of Sunnymead Boulevard. An online search revealed that the Options for Youth Public Charter Schools operates in that area. Watson was arrested when deputies served a search warrant at her home on the 1400 block of Silent Stream Court in Eastvale on Friday, the release said. This is an ongoing investigation and no details are available at this time. Now, the second of the last 3 stories here. Ex-teacher of the year faces child sex abuse indictment in Wicomico County. A Wicomico County educator and former teacher of the year is facing 52 charges in a criminal indictment that includes sexual abuse of a minor, sex offenses, assault, neglect of a minor, and failure to report child abuse, according to online court records. Ann Schuchart, 40, of Salisbury, was charged in the Wicomico County Circuit Court in a case filed this week. Wicomico County Public Schools identified Schuchart as a teacher at James M. Bennett High School. The school's website lists her as a family and consumer sciences teacher, and in a 2021 school system announcement identified her as Bennett's Teacher of the Year. The indictment includes 3 felony counts related to sexual abuse of a minor, including 2 counts described in court records as sexual abuse of a minor by a household or family member. Schuchart is also charged with multiple counts of third-degree sex offense, fourth-degree sex offense involving sexual contact, and second-degree assault. The alleged offenses are listed in court records as occurring between April 2nd, 2021 and April 29th, 2026. A docket entry says a minor victim was indicated. An arrest warrant was issued Tuesday and served Wednesday, according to court records. Schuchart appeared Thursday for an initial appearance and a bail review before Judge Kathleen Leonard Beckstead was released on personal recognizance. An attorney listed for Schuchart in online court records did not immediately respond to a request for comment Friday. Wicomico County Public Schools said Friday that Schuchart was placed on administrative leave and was not currently working in the school system. And the final story, Alex, to round this out. So this is again 5 teachers arrested this week, 5 female teachers for being very inappropriate with children. A teacher at Ginyard Butler Middle School has been placed on administrative leave and charged after allegedly exchanging messages with students on social media, according to the Barnwell County Sheriff's Office. The report says concerns were first relayed to the Sheriff's Office on May 8th when a parent contacted the agency about a teacher allegedly communicating with middle school students through the Discord group chat. School officials told investigators the district was made aware of the allegations, and the teacher, identified as Irene Danielle Twig, was placed on administrative leave while the district looked into the matter. The parent reported the messages were inappropriate and included a photo of the teacher holding what was described as a marijuana blunt, along with messages referencing smoking marijuana. Investigators said they obtained a screenshot of some of the messages interviewing students at the school. According to the report, students identified the Discord username as belonging to Twig and acknowledged marijuana was discussed in the chat. The report says students told investigators they had not met with the teacher outside of school. On May 13th, 2026, the Barnwell County Sheriff's Office arrested and charged Irene Danielle Twig with 2 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. There you go. That rounds out the stories this week, Alex. The last one can be an asterisk for possibly not engaging in sexual contact yet.
So what have you learned from your journeys this week, Gator?
That there are far too many horny female teachers out there who need to calm the fuck down. They need to knock it off.
I see.
And just stick to the ABCs and the 1 + 1 is 2. Stick to the facts.
Serve as a public service announcement, really, to the myriads of female high school teachers in our audience. Know that you're making a difference, Gator.
All right, excellent. We're scaring them straight, as they say. We're making sure that you understand you will get caught if you are doing this. Looks like we have a request.
This is the local focus of our group. You see, of our chats. You see, we're staying with topics that we feel we can have an impact on.
Yes, one teacher, one busted teacher at a time. DA Merrick has requested to speak. I've authorized him to come on up and comment, either opine, give us some sort of insight into the world of female teachers who try to sleep with students or smoke the pot with them. DA, go ahead and speak if you're up here. I can't see you as being listed, but I did approve your. Okay, I don't hear him. We'll see if the system lets him up, because I did approve him.
He'll use our universal protocol for continuing to. The butting in protocol, basically, the established way of
screaming
getting the
void
mic
until we acknowledge their existence. Yes, screaming to the void until we acknowledge their existence. Well, we're going to move on to some tech news, Alex, before we start moving on to AI doomerism and traces of AI dystopia, because we have a lot of stuff to discuss in those veins today. This one, somewhat of an optimistic story. We know that the surveillance systems out there and the age verification systems are getting quite ubiquitous. They are sort of permeating all of the places, and laws are being passed in Canada, the UK, the EU in general, and in many locations in the United States, trying to have computer systems enforce this age verification process for access to certain systems, which has the byproduct of being a massive surveillance apparatus itself. But there is good news here, Alex. This is from Wired.com. A kid with a fake mustache tricked an online age verification tool. Meta is beefing up its age verification mechanisms with an AI system that analyzes images and videos on Instagram and Facebook for visual cues, such as height and bone structure, to identify and delete accounts of users under the age of 13. The company announced the move amid a wave of cases in which hundreds of children have managed to evade social network access restrictions, even through simple tricks such as drawing on a mustache. A new approach is part of a series of measures Meta adopted as part of an AI-based security strategy designed to correct the limitations of traditional methods, which rely heavily on self-reported age. With this change, the company seeks to reduce the ease of which minors access platforms that, in theory, are age-restricted to them. In a press release, Meta explained that it is implementing several tools to identify contextual indicators that allow estimating a person's age. This process includes the analysis of posts, comments, bios, and descriptions, with special attention to references related to school years or birthday celebrations, elements that can offer clues about the real age of a person who manages the account. These tools are in addition to automated analysis techniques aimed at detecting physical traits from imagery shared to Meta's social platforms. These include characteristics such as height and bone structure. Meta is careful to stipulate that this system is not face recognition, as it does not seek to identify specific individuals or in images or videos. Instead, the company notes that by combining these visual insights with our analysis of text and interactions, we can significantly increase the number of underage accounts that we identify and remove. Now, Alex, you know that one of my pet peeves of the past several years is complaining about Facebook and, by proxy, Meta and their complete inability to use these sophisticated systems they supposedly have and have the money to pay for to build, should they not currently possess them, to be able to filter out simple things like exposed breasts or exposed vaginas on their platform, and that they fail to do so routinely to the point where I have many examples accumulating of them advertising, let's say, clothing removal AI apps in large mass quantities, where the advertisements themselves contain depictions of removed clothing and graphic nudity. They also have been advertising the sex chatbots that create AI video of the scenes that you want to construct and depicting those in gratuitous fashion in their advertisements. Yet they think they can identify something as nuanced as whether or not you're 13 or 14. They think that they're going to implement that when they can't even implement a breast locator.
Well, look, I think we got a little bit of a clue there in the text of the article. But first of all, yes, right? They have an LLMs with visual capabilities that can probably do some estimation of age. The problem, of course, comes with false well, depends what you count as positive or negative, but you get what I mean. Like, if somebody is over 13, but you lock them out, then you have two problems. A, this is a customer of yours that you have now excluded, and B, somebody's pissed. So, it comes down to like, okay, you and me can sit down and probably write something that works 90% of the time, say, right? Mm-hmm. But if you had to write something that works 99.99% of the time, it gets interesting, right? Because presumably the people who are trying to trick you are close in range to the limit. It's not going to be an 8-year-old, and it's not going to be a 18-year-old, because an 18-year-old can just, well, yeah, actually, anything above a 13-year-old is less and less likely to try to trick you. So, but what was interesting in the text is that they said, they were very, very explicit to say this is not face recognition. Because presumably the easy way to do this is figure out who this is, look it up in government records, right? And, well, voila, problem solved. No need to look at bone structures or whatever. And really, I think this starts to get to the heart of the problem. I mean, okay, there's a basic problem that this is against Facebook's incentives, right? Facebook is a online service that wants as many users as possible for many reasons, including the fact that network effects.
I think on its premise that they have I think the premise even that there's a large number of 13 and under users trying to get on Facebook, as if that's the hip and happening place to be on the internet right now, is a little bit.
Well, I mean,
Instagram maybe. Instagram.
Yes,
more
that's
so,
the thing. It's the same company, right? So you got Instagram, you got a bunch of other almost functioning platforms like Threads. So probably Instagram. Let's face it. Maybe WhatsApp. Okay, so there's that. But there's the incentive on the one hand, and then there's the how deep are you willing to cut into the false positives area? Not that I'm trying to sort of I guess excuse them, but it is, if you want to do it well enough, it is a hard task, even if you're willing to use cutting edge tech. Now, removing breasts from ads is
impossible.
far easier, aka impossible. Yes. But again, right, you're getting back into that space of like, okay, the government tells them to do it, so I guess they're motivated in that sense to not be caught not doing it. But also the other side is giving them money. It's like a bank, right? Who has a drug dealer trying to deposit $5 million. It's like, on the one hand, they probably know they shouldn't take it. On the other hand, it's $5 million. So the motivation to somehow convince yourself that this is not drug money, but somehow this drug dealer came upon some winnings, it's large.
Well, this also comes in conjunction, if you recall, some stories several weeks ago, where some of the laws that are being passed in certain jurisdictions are putting pressure on operating systems to create an API interface by which websites are able to query the host operating system to get the age of the users, or claimed age of the user that created the account on the operating system that is being used. This is...
Right, and this is the other side of that, which I guess I was kind of like touching with the face recognition point. But, people have to think really carefully about how much they want Facebook to get good at this, right? Because a Facebook that can get good at, figuring out if you're 13 or 12 or 14 is a Facebook that can, figure out a lot of things about you. And, in most other cases, people are very uncomfortable with that capability. A, and B, especially if it requires invasive checks into data that you normally don't provide to online vendors. So it's a messed up situation. And actually, to bridge it with your previous conversation of the teachers, right? Like, there is this notion that we can sort of have a bureaucracy that is, both sort of doing the right thing and as a caring teacher and really connects with the students, but to a point, right? Like it's an online platform that does all of its legal obligations, and absolutely, if you're one day before the limit, it will absolutely catch you and let you go. But once you get in, you're an anonymous sort of user, part of the crowd. It doesn't know anything about, like, to some degree, I think, unfortunately, we have a demand for safety on the one hand, and a demand for, a far more fluid human connection on the other. And I don't know. I think something needs to be done to people figure out that the demands we place on people and companies and employees and whatever behind a business relationship, let's say, right? You're hired to be a teacher and you should only be a teacher and you should, nothing else, whatever. Or you are an online, social network company and you shall, perform your duties as a social actor or whatever. There's a cost to those demands. And that cost might be other things that you don't like. And ultimately, even if you take out the specific company, okay, you don't have to like Zuckerberg, you don't have to like the particular product, whatever. At some point, the two impossible to sort of square demands come up against each other.
Yeah, I think in general the issue, like there may be properties that Meta owns that are more susceptible to, let's say, controversy should a large number of kids 13 and under gain access to them in an unrestricted fashion. just controversies that, let's say Meta would rather not have on their hands, which would be, active grooming campaigns similar to the way Roblox has poorly handled, child predators in their environments, interacting with underage kids. I'm sure that there's properties that Meta has that I'm not wasn't even aware that Meta had as a property where this is more sensitive, and that's something they would prefer to get ahead of. But one thing I do know that they, in a similar vein to the advertising complaints I just had with the nudity, there are accounts that are able to run on Facebook that are often hosted from like overseas. The accounts are propped up in, let's say, like India or some other location, that go around and accumulate underage children in like swimwear and gymnastic clothing, and promote those as being attractive and sexy type content, and get a lot of ad revenue, I believe, is the goal from, getting revenue from interactions with posting that content. Now, I'm aware that some parents exploit their own children in that manner, and that there are such things as, we'll call them legitimate legal modeling agencies that have the same sorts of talent acquisitions in that sort of age range, and for that reason. But this is like a large problem that I've noticed that they have, that's similar to not identifying the real pornographic advertising that they allow for these apps that, do the clothing removal or the fantasy girlfriend sex bot thing. This is another thing where they pay out these people to post content, and the content is largely procured to gear towards the perverse, using and exploiting underage people that I have not seen them clean up in large degree. Anytime it's come through my feed, like on Reels or something, where you're just getting a mix of stuff that you've never followed, but the algorithm is recommending it to you, I go and report it. And I check back on the accounts later to see if they get removed. And I've reported so many that they still exist months and months after, even though like I don't know if you've used Facebook in a long time, Alex, but if you have a reel or something along those lines,
I have not.
Oftentimes you can have interactive content on top of it, where you can have clickable links and whatnot. And on some of these things where you have an underage person in, let's say, swimwear, there will be a link that takes you to a pornographic website as part of the let's say onboarding process, right? And I've reported those, and Facebook will leave those accounts up for months and months and months, despite me actually going onto them and like reporting all of them. Yeah, what's up?
Does clicking the report button count as additional interaction with those accounts that will in turn bring you even more?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming everything I do is doomed to just thrust this stuff at me, but that's a real problem that I've noticed that they have, and yeah. If they're gonna target this activity on anything, I would hope that they would target it at that, to say like,
look, let's zoom it out a little bit from that particular one, which is a specific instance of a larger problem that I also was concerned about, and unfortunately, I think I was right on X when they started paying for content. Right, which is that, well, now congratulations, you get the Good Heart Award. And I guess I should say what the Good Heart effect is, but the short formulation is a measure that becomes a target stops being a good measure, right? Okay, what does that gobbledygook mean? When you're not paying for people to get impressions, then yes, if you sort people by impressions, you might find interesting accounts. But once you start paying people for impressions, now you got a race to the bottom of like the most clickbaity shit that will get clicks. Like on YouTube sometimes I see like there's an account that's like a dude with an arrow trying to pierce as many balloons in sequence as possible, right?
Okay.
And you look at the views and it's like, I don't know, 85 million or something. And you're like, I mean, that's it. Right. Like once you see it, you realize I'm not dumb enough to come up with ideas like this. Like, I don't know. It's genius in some way that is like not accessible to me. Okay, you know, and whatever. Like if that's what you like, go and watch it. But like, you know, I would question that should be what we consider good content. Yeah, I don't know, and this is another one, I guess, in a more risque direction, the one you mentioned. But it comes down to the fact that, you know, you can ban all the obvious stuff, right? Like, okay, if that child was naked, then okay, obviously it gets taken down. And then it's like, okay, how many clothes can we put on it that, you know, doesn't immediately trigger the filters, but does the job, you know, for whatever the job is supposed to be. And if you ban that, then we will retreat to the next, you know.
Yeah, you're playing. You would be playing whack-a-mole with the identification and the rules. So whatever the rules were, you could possibly try to skirt the rules as far as you possibly could to hopefully evade detection. But then if you hit the detection, you have to figure out which set of rules you can go lax on to evade the boundaries of the detection mechanism. I think, though, based on my observation, which I haven't seen their back ends to know whether I'm just seeing for my eyes, being an individual person, a large quantity of that kind of stuff slipping through the cracks that goes unaddressed, and I'm failing to see the massive quantities they do somehow handle, and it's just a law of large numbers sort of thing, where, you know, when you just have billions and billions of postings every day, you know, a few hundred slipping through the cracks that happen to, you know, hit my eyeballs is actually not that bad of a success record, and maybe that's the situation we're in. But from where I stand, my observations itself, it's just I don't think that they do near enough job to have to be worrying about the marginal concerns yet. The things that sneak through are so blatant. It's like this isn't marginal stuff. This is,
look, ultimately, right? You've got to. Okay, let me try to articulate this. It's a complicated thought that I'm not even sure I have correctly formulated yet. But when it comes to ethics, right, you've got two competing worldviews. One is the consequentialist, which is, you know, the whatever you do is sort of judged by the effects of it, and, you know, how good or bad it is. You can sort of sort things by, you know, goodness or badness or whatever. And you got the deontic, which is more like, you know, the 10 laws of Moses or whatever, 12 commandments. What was it? I don't know. It's been a while. But, you know, they're like, thou shalt not, basically, right? You cannot, you know, thou shalt not traffic in child porn. Fine. But, you know, but once you get to it's not yet child porn, then you get like a lot of the incentivized stuff. Like, oh, you get paid for good content. Right. So long as it does not cross the line. So on the one hand, you have an analog sort of, you know, more better type, you know, incentive system. And on the other hand, you have a hard line that shall not cross, you know, over. So, right. I mean, when you have these two things, you know, the company tells you both things at the same time. The more content you put, the more money we give you. But if you cross those lines, you kind of get whacked. Right. So, you know, when a company's trying to push this, you know, this dual ethics system on you, right? I mean, you're going to have this. This is just what's going to happen. You're going to have effectively, like, if you see it as a graph, you're going to have a hard switch over, a step function or whatever. Right? It's just how it's going to be. Like,
well,
I don't understand.
There is an alternative, which I guess is what Musk is doing, which is just having Nikita or whatever to make arbitrary decisions in policy. on a whim's notice, and then go and yell at the content, the people who are complaining. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, just block everybody who you don't like, then say that you're the free speech absolutist, then pay people for shit, have random enforcement. I mean, you know, what else? There's still a fucking thread of mine, dude, that talks about WHO pandemic, whatever, that is unfindable on search. I know which one it is. I've highlighted it to people on Twitter. You just can't find it. That's just one example. But there's many threads
that just go they go dark on search for some reason.
Right.
That, who knows, whatever, how could I find out what's happening? Is this something that's left over from old Twitter? Is it on purpose? There's tweet cred. I don't know if you know about that whole, shit sandwich.
I remember it was familiar to me. Go ahead and explain it though.
Tweet cred. I think it's like Twitter people, tweeps, right? Cred is a credibility. Is basically the system puts a number on your profile to say how good an account you are, how credibility, yes, or credit you have, and then it promotes it more or less, right? And the criteria when the first open source release of the algorithm was, criteria on it were absolutely horrendous, to the point where blocking people can reduce your tweet cred. But also replying to people that don't follow you could reduce your tweet cred, and just a bunch of stuff that is absolutely normal things to do. Somehow marks you as down. It makes a credit score look like a sane system. Let's say.
Right.
And it's okay, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's another way to do it, where your sort of set of incentives and disincentives are random. But Musk bashing aside, I don't know. I think there's a real problem here when you have a market incentive on the one hand and you have a legal incentive on the other, and then you're sort of trying to dance between them, and there's just no way to win from a PR perspective. I suppose people respect the people who make money, but they hate the people who expose minors to whatever it is Facebook is doing. And you can never do enough, right? I suppose. Though I'm not saying that what they're doing now is sufficient or not sufficient or whatever. It's having worked on stuff like this, not specifically like this, but digital platform policies, let's call it. It gets messy. But ultimately, again, the deepest problem is that Facebook is not motivated to ban users, exclude content, block advertisers, all those things. They're just not.
Right.
It's not their fault. It's just how it is.
Well, it could also be their fault. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it could also be.
Well, how they're motivated is not their fault. What they do as a result of it.
Yeah.
That's on them.
All right. Well, moving forward, Alex, we were just discussing things just now about how sometimes protocols and behaviors might have boundaries, and there might be lines that are ambiguous and you don't know if you're crossing them, and it's hard to set, hard fixed rules. I think we have a scenario here where that does not apply. Okay. I think there might be some hard, fast rules that prevent this type of scenario. But we're going to hear now is it's an oops. Someone made an oopsie. But I would argue that this is a large oops, a very big oopsie. And the person who made this is probably not going to have a secure job future if their name is made public. This is from Krebs on Security. CISA, CISA admin, leaked AWS GovCloud keys on GitHub. Until this past weekend, a contractor for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency maintained a public GitHub repository that exposed credentials to several highly privileged AWS GovCloud accounts and a large number of internal CISA systems. Security experts said the public archive included files detailing how CISA builds, tests, and deploys software internally, and that it represents one of the most egregious government data leaks in recent history. On May 15th, Krebs on Security learned from Guillaume Valadon, a researcher with the security firm GitGuardian. Valadon's company consistently scans public code repositories at GitHub and elsewhere for exposed secrets, automatically alerting the offending accounts of any apparent sensitive data exposures. Valadon said he reached out because the owner in this case wasn't responding and the information exposed was highly sensitive. The GitHub repository that Valadon flagged was named Private CISA, and it harbored a vast number of internal CISA DHS credentials and files, including cloud keys, tokens, plaintext passwords, logs, and other sensitive CISA assets. Valadon said that the exposed CISA credentials represented a textbook example of poor security hygiene. noting that the commit logs in the offending GitHub account show that the CISA administrator disabled the default setting in GitHub that blocks users from publishing SSH keys or other secrets in public code repositories. Quote, passwords stored in plain text in a CSV, backups in Git, explicit commands to disable GitHub secrets detection feature. Valadon wrote in an email, I honestly believe that it was all fake before analyzing the content deeper. This is indeed the worst leak I've witnessed in my career. It's obviously an individual's mistake, but I believe it might reveal internal practices. One of the exposed files, titled Important AWS Tokens, included the administrative credentials to 3 Amazon AWS GovCloud servers. Another file exposed in the public GitHub repository AWS Workspace Firefox Passwords.csv listed plain text usernames and passwords for dozens of internal CISA systems. According to Catastrophic, those systems include one called LZDSO, which appears short for Landing Zone DevSecOps, the agency's secure code development environment. Felipe Catastrophic, founder of the security consultancy Surlays, says he tested the AWS keys only to see whether they were still valid and to determine which internal systems the exposed accounts could access. Catastrophic said the GitHub account that exposed the CISA secrets exhibits a pattern consistent with the individual operator using the repository as a working scratch pad or synchronization mechanism rather than a curated project repository. Quote, to use both a CISA-associated email address and a personal email address suggests the repository may have been used across differently configured environments, Catastrophic observed. The available Git metadata alone does not prove which endpoint or device was used. Catastrophic said he validated the exposed credentials could authenticate to 3 AWS GovCloud accounts at a high privilege level. He said the archive also includes plain text credentials to CISA's internal Artifactory, essentially a repository of all the code packages they use to build their software, and that this would represent a juicy target for malicious attackers looking for ways to maintain a persistent foothold in CISA systems. Quote, that would be a prime place to move laterally, he said, backdoor in some software packages, and every time they build something new, they deploy your backdoor left and right. In response to questions, a spokesman for CISA said the agency is aware of the reported exposure and is continuing to investigate the situation. Quote, currently, there is no indication that any sensitive data was compromised as a result of this incident, the CISA spokesperson wrote. While we hold our team members to the highest standards of integrity and operational awareness, we are working to ensure additional safeguards are implemented to prevent future occurrences. So, Alex, I've made some oopsies in my day. You know, some of them are not because of anything I necessarily did wrong, but information I didn't possess that caused me to take action that made an oopsie. But this one, I can safely say, is not to the level of anything I've ever oopsied.
Yeah. I mean, again, like to use the accursed, Swiss cheese metaphor, these kinds of failures only happen because not because, of one mistake, but because there were like, I don't know, 10 different ways to not do this, and you went through and disabled each one. You dodged the thing that would have helped you. It's like, simplest. Oh man, I keep getting this annoying fucking message about having my public keys on GitHub. What do I do? Let me disable it. That's what I'm gonna do.
Never see this message again. Bye-bye message.
Well,
problem solved.
Oh, that's fixed. Yeah.
I mean, listen. Good practice is to always set up your git ignore whenever you're starting a new project. Anytime you start a new project, set up your git ignore and put the git ignore to have all of the files that contain the sensitive things in the git ignore. Yes, if you have to start from scratch downloading the repository, you will have to reconstruct those artifacts, but that's better. That is better.
That's not just better. It's how you enable other people to use the same thing you're doing without having to use your credentials to do so.
Yes, but then you get someone all angry. Hey, I can't make this run, and then you gotta spend time out of your day.
By the way, I think we should probably clarify for people what GovCloud is, because if for people who haven't been exposed to it, they might not realize how fully fucked this is.
Go ahead.
So GovCloud is the AWS. It's a clone of the Amazon Cloud environment, I guess. It has all the same things, but on there you can deploy your services
in a way, maybe like a more restricted way, or like they have additional checks, or I don't know, whatever it is.
FedRAMP approved.
Yes,
you have the
exactly.
various standards.
So, for example, if Palantir deploys a new AI model for use by government agencies, they would not deploy it on like vanilla Amazon. They would put it only on GovCloud, right? So the things that you put on there are explicitly for the government, and you do it in a way that, let's say, meets the expectations of the federal government, both in, like
there's certain levels of regulations and certifications that, particularly if you're a government contractor, you have to adhere to in order to be able to get certain government contracts. And networking protocols and where your data is quarantined are a huge part of those regulations and certifications that you have to adhere to. And the regular consumer cloud services basically don't meet those standards, but the government versions of the same sort of cloud services, for the most part, you have the same offerings, but at a higher price. They do have the ability to meet those types of certifications, so that even though it's an external networked system and that you are relying on, you can still have certain assurances under certain conditions that you are meeting the government standards for the ability to protect your sensitive data. And then, of course, throwing the keys onto a public GitHub completely throws that ability out.
It's definitely not allowed by said certifications. Let's just this is like the like, back in the day, if you had a government-based system, you were not allowed to put it anywhere but on, premises you controlled. It was like, we're not going to put the server with all this public health data, like, on a random cloud. And GovCloud was the compromise that was created to enable government to like not be completely in the Stone Age, while it is they have a increased control of how that works. And as Gator said, like, you're not going to get your data randomly appearing in some European or God forbid Chinese or whatever server, because it was part of some large BitTorrent style data mixing protocol or whatever. Everything that is in GovCloud stays in GovCloud and whatever. But you put a few dozen keys on GitHub, and all of a sudden, you never know where your data could end up, which is a little bit of a problem. Yeah.
Yep. So that's a big oops. A big oops. Now, somewhat.
Sorry, Gator. Before we lock this up, though, we should say like that's ultimately the problem when people say like, well, the government needs to know this about you or that about you. They're always operating under the assumption that, of course, this data will only be ours and for us, and we'll stay in our trusted, blah, 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 Fed servers and whatever. And time after time, the same thing happens where, oopsie, somehow the keys leaked to GitHub or whatever, right? Somebody got in. Oh, we forgot. Yeah. Oh, a tiny hole was discovered, and it's all out. So, we should like also highlight that part that, in a way,
it's the modern surveillance state. It's hypothetical omniscience with major blind spots that randomly occur.
It's like trying to make a tire that holds in the air while you're being shot at.
Like in the EU, it's being able to find the person who made a snide comment on Reddit somewhere about you as a politician and be able to personally sue them. It's having that ability of massive government surveillance, but, not really paying attention to all of the sensitive data that might get pushed out there by individuals just hitting the wrong buttons. Yes. It's a nice balance. That's right. So I'm going to skip the next one here because it's not as important. We're going to move on to some developments in the tech space, Alex. OpenAI co-founder Andrej Karpathy joins Anthropic. I don't know if you heard this announcement that he is now.
Yes. I've been working with. I've been following it closely.
Okay. Andrej Karpathy, one of the best-known AI researchers in the world and a founding member of OpenAI, announced Tuesday that he's joining rival AI lab Anthropic. The hire is a major coup for Anthropic in the high-stakes competition for elite AI talent, and another sign the company is emerging as a magnet for some of the industry's most respected technical minds. Karpathy will start this week on Anthropic's pre-training team, which is responsible for the massive training runs that give Claude its core knowledge and capabilities, according to Anthropic. Karpathy will help launch a new team focused on using Claude itself to accelerate pre-training research, an increasingly important frontier as AI companies race to automate parts of AI development. Quote, I think the next few years at the frontier of LLMs will be especially formative. I am very excited to join the team here and get back to R&D, Karpathy said in a post on X. Karpathy is a rare AI figure with credibility across research, industry, and education. He was a founding member of OpenAI before serving as Tesla's director of AI, where he led the computer vision team behind Autopilot. Karpathy coined the term vibe coding and has recently described himself as being in a state of AI psychosis since December, embracing token maxing and aggressively stress testing frontier models. Since leaving Tesla in 2022, Karpathy has become one of AI's most influential public educators, building a massive following through technical explainers and educational content on YouTube and X. He said Tuesday he remains deeply passionate about education and plans to return to that work in time. The AI race is often framed around massive funding rounds and scarce computing power. Just as important is the fierce competition for a small pool of researchers like Karpathy capable of advancing the frontier. Alex, you said you've been following this, so do you have thoughts on the matter?
Yes. So Karpathy is incredible in that, ever since he left OpenAI, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year, who knows? At this point, it's all blending together. He had been, in effect, a one-man lab, right? So, yes, he coined vibe coding. Then he put out this thing about how he makes his personal memory for his agent. That became another cottage industry. Like literally,
was
like
that
every tweet he made. Like,
did he do Graphify? Was that he just pushed Graphify? Was that?
I don't like. There's been a number of people who have implemented his ideas about like having some kind of like Obsidian style wiki for your agent, and various people have implemented it. So if what you're talking about is in that vein, then it's quite likely influenced by what he posted. But the thing that so he did the whole thing about vibe coding. Another project that I've been working a lot with is called NanoChat. And NanoChat, I think, is very, very important and worth people at least knowing it exists, which is that he sat down and he implemented all of the basic building blocks of a large language model in open source, right? So that's something that you can, and I have, downloaded and uploaded to a server that you can rent with a hefty GPU and tell it to train on your behalf a large language model. Usually you run these for like, I don't know, a couple of hours. The standard use case is that you run these for a couple of hours and you get a model that is about GPT-2 level competence. So we're not like, if you push it to like, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours, or maybe a day or maybe 2 days, you could get something like that is GPT-3 level, but you're not going to be competing in the frontier anytime soon. Mostly because, it costs a lot more in terms of GPUs that you need. But the fact that, anybody can actually download code, choose the data, like tweak it, like download a paper, say like, hey, can you apply this paper to this code base and try to train it and see if we do any better or whatever, is amazing, right? So when people talk about like open source models from DeepSeek or whatever, what DeepSeek is giving you is the weights, is the result of the training. But very few people actually give you the source code that you can use to train your own models. And that's what Karpathy did. And he's not like the only one. NVIDIA has released some things here and there, whatever, but he made a code base that is very easy to get into and all that stuff. Now, with that in mind, the thing that relates to him being hired at Anthropic to do this is that having made NanoChat very accessible and very easy to tweak and play with and whatever, he then created an additional project on top of it called Auto Research. What Auto Research did is he showed this code to an AI and an LLM, maybe with a harness, let's say something like Claude Code or Codex or whatever. And he said to it, hey, can you improve my LLM? Right? So can you look at this code that I've done and how I'm training it and whatever, and come up with ideas that we can try to make it better. And by better, in his particular situation, he meant to hit that GPT-2 threshold in performance in less time, right? So originally, when OpenAI had originally trained GPT-2, it took, I don't know, weeks, months. He had gotten it down to a few hours, and then it got down to, I think his original auto research run cut about 18% of that time. Now it's come down to like
quick
under
question.
100 minutes.
I know that you're not going to have like a hard number for this, but given that the flops available to compute per second have increased since they were actually first training GPT-2, do you have some sort of metric in flops for training?
Yes. So the computational substrate has remained the same in his numbers, which is an H100 chip. Right. So all of these numbers I'm talking about are on the same silicon, not
you
like
said H100, right? That's the one that you were having trouble finding rental for, like available rental space.
So funnily enough, what I did is I found an 8X B300, which is like the next model and plus bigger. So
okay.
What I've been doing is I've been running the runs that take his system on his specified silicon 90 minutes to run. I've been cutting them down to 50 and then 40 and then 30 minutes. But that's sort of, what I'm spending my time doing. But to do that, and to your point, I've had to sort of adopt a different silicon. But all of his numbers are on this particular chip. If you find the flops of that chip, you'll find the answer to your question. But long story short, people lost their fucking minds when, he turned essentially the training process of the LLM into something an LLM could improve, right? Because at that point, and really this comes down to the core of the whole AI industry, right? Why do you see data centers popping up everywhere? And I know that, people have their concerns about environmental factors and government coming in and eminent domain and all that shit. And much of that has logic to it, not all of it, but much of it does have, it justifies. But the reason is that you can just crank, right? Like, first of all, we found out that the more compute you throw at this thing, the better the model becomes, broadly speaking. And that's important because you don't need to be careful, right? You just say like, all right, how much silicon can we throw together, right? Because this is, what you get at the other end is valuable. Now, if you could add a second loop on top of it, which is like, the better model I get, the better my training gets, which means the better model I get out the other side without even having to build additional data centers. I mean, that is the kind of snowball he started going a few months ago, right? And we should be careful. He's not the first person to come up with the idea or whatever, but like much of what he does, he's the first person to articulate it in a way that captured everybody's imagination, make it simple enough, distill it to its essence, and really get everybody talking about it. So yeah, I can totally see why Anthropic would go to him with an offer he couldn't refuse. Am I being helpful here, or am I rambling? How am I doing?
No, I mean, listen. I know that some of the discussion is going to be above the non-technical person's head, and hopefully we can get some feedback as to what would be best to explain or expand on it for anyone who doesn't follow everything that we're saying at the moment, because we do have a wide audience that in talents and familiarity with this space. Some people are much more familiar than others. Broadly speaking, though, to summarize with less technicals, is you're talking about a sort of discovery that people have had, that whatever future diminishing returns there might be on training models, we currently are not hitting a place where there's apparent diminishing returns. The more compute, quote unquote, you throw at the problem, the better the models you get appreciably, almost in a linear fashion, where it's just scales to however much compute and time you throw at it. So if you have more training data, more compute resources, you just throw that together, you get a better model than you had before. And that there is some design in the training process that has the ability to receive benefits that the model you've just trained is able to help you find, to be able to make an even better model, so that it's not only are we lacking diminishing returns, there is a sort of an exponential growth phenomenon at the point we currently are in this epoch, which is where you can get the model to make the code that made it even better, to make a better model than its own self. It's like raising your own child to outcompete you in at your job, right? Like, it's that kind of idea. Mm-hmm. And so that's broadly what you're discussing, that Karpathy has been able to help do. And I just looked it up. Yes, Graphify was inspired by something he did, which was also a graph-based memory system, and that Graphify was useful for me because I wanted to utilize Neo4j, which is a graph database, as a knowledge backend, but the scaffolding you need to sort of make that work very cleanly is a lot, but Graphify is able to sort of bridge that gap because it does the pre-gathering of information and is able to export into something you can consume in Neo4j. So that was very nice. But that's way out of bounds.
And I guess the other side of that question is Anthropic, right? Which, as we've been discussing, has been on a pretty generational run. They even posted that, they might be profitable this quarter, which there's some asterisks around, but like, they've just been exploding and exploding and exploding. So Karpathy joining, at least from a narrative perspective.
Well, since you bring up profitability, that bridges us interestingly into our next discussion here in the tech stack here, Alex. Mm-hmm. So
it's good.
SpaceX IPO filing lays bare losses in Musk's control as it stakes future on AI. This is from Reuters. SpaceX took the wraps off its IPO filing on Wednesday, laying bare for investors just how much Elon Musk is losing on artificial intelligence while betting the company's future on transforming the rocket maker into an AI powerhouse. Much of its outlook relies on SpaceX dominating technologies in markets that do not yet exist, from Mars missions to AI data centers in space. For many, Musk's record-turning Tesla opens a new tab on the most valuable auto company in the world, and developing the world's first fully reusable rocket and largest satellite network is enough to justify the investment. The filing cements Musk's tight control of SpaceX while giving shareholders little say over his decisions. It shows just how central AI has become following the February purchase of xAI, which drove most of the company's spending and a majority of its losses in the first quarter. The listing could become the first U.S. market debut above $1 trillion and would immediately make SpaceX one of the world's most valuable publicly traded companies. Of SpaceX's three divisions, only the connectivity segment powered by satellite internet unit Starlink was profitable in the first 3 months of the year. While Starlink generated an operating profit of $1.19 billion, it wasn't enough to prevent the company from booking a total operating loss of $1.94 billion in the first quarter on $4.69 billion in revenue. Its AI division alone accounted for $2.47 billion in losses and $818 million in revenue. Musk's purchase of his social media and AI company xAI gave SpaceX new capabilities and opportunities, but a staggering amount of spending, accounting for 76% of its $10 billion in capital spending in the first quarter, as well as fresh losses. The company's plans rely on technology that's not yet been built for much of its future revenue stream, including operating data centers powered by solar power in space to reach a potential market of $28.5 trillion, according to the filing. The filing confirmed a series of recent Reuters reports about the IPO. SpaceX has grown into the world's largest space business since its founding in 2002 by launching thousands of Starlink internet satellites. Its pioneering use of reusable rockets has transformed the economics of space, forcing competitors like Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin to play catch-up. Successful share sale could value the company at a record-setting $1.75 trillion, which will put its founder on track to become the first trillionaire in history. Musk will also retain 85% of the combined voting power of the company, the filing showed. The company's regulatory disclosures come during a critical week for the rocket maker, which is preparing to launch a test flight of its next-generation Starship rocket on Thursday. The board has given Musk control over the company, but has tied much of his compensation to audacious targets of establishing a permanent human colony on Mars and building space data centers with compute capacity powered by equivalent of 100 terawatts or 100,000 1-gigawatt nuclear reactors, Reuters previously reported. SpaceX is aiming to list its shares as early as June 12th, with a roadshow launch targeted for June 4th and a share sale expected as early as June 11th, Reuters reported last week. Musk's CEO celebrity persona may matter more to some investors than SpaceX's underlying business fundamentals, analysts and academics said, because there are no other comparable companies against which to benchmark its valuation. Quote, there is somewhat of a halo effect around Musk and his unconventional vision, says Reena Agarwal, a finance professor at Georgetown University. Quote, it's difficult to value companies like this because there's no peer group for comparison. The 1.75 trillion valuation target, if achieved, would eclipse Saudi Aramco's 2019 offering, which set a record for the world's largest IPO when it debuted on Riyadh's exchange at a value of 1.7 trillion. SpaceX had planned to try to raise more than $75 billion in the offering, Reuters previously reported. SpaceX will use a dual-class share structure that gives Class B shareholders 10 votes each, concentrating control with Musk and a handful of other insiders, while Class A shares sold to public investors will carry 1 vote each, the prospectus showed. The company has adopted numerous provisions that, taken together, severely limit shareholder rights, forcing legal claims through arbitration, restricting where cases can be filed, and protecting Musk from being fired by anyone other than Musk. The scale of the offering has drawn attention to the increasingly interconnected structure of Musk's business empire, often dubbed the Muskonomy, which includes leading electric vehicle company Tesla, as well as his businesses in AI and brain chip implants. SpaceX merged with Musk's AI startup xAI in a deal that valued the rocket company at $1 trillion and the developer of the Grok chatbot at $250 billion. Through its AI infrastructure platform, SpaceX inked deals for Anthropic to pay the $1.25 billion a month to use compute capacity from its Colossus and Colossus II data center clusters in Memphis, Tennessee, through May 2029, the filing shows. The company disclosed that it had been named as a defendant in multiple lawsuits arriving from its AI chatbot Grok's image generation and editing features. The race to commercialize space has been intensified as private companies led by SpaceX and Blue Origin compete to slash launch costs, deploy satellite networks, and secure government contracts. SpaceX's revenue is driven by Starlink, the world's largest satellite operator. The network of about 10,000 satellites offers broadband internet to consumers, governments, and enterprise customers. But the company's expanding footprint across aviation, maritime, and enterprise markets is helping turn capital-intensive space projects into a recurring revenue engine. SpaceX's plans to earmark a significant portion of shares for retail investors and will host about 1,500 of them at an event in June, Reuters reported in April. The company is expected to list on the NASDAQ and NASDAQ Texas under the ticker symbol SPCX. Now, Alex, I know previously you specified that you were not necessarily going to be part of purchasing the IPO. You didn't say necessarily that you would be against it, but that you, at the time that I had sort of asked you, you weren't like sold on trying to get in, let's say, on the ground floor. Given the status of like Grok and its ability to generate revenue and the amount that has been pushed into that, do you think that the waiting for a while would be the right time to get into SpaceX if you got in at all, or would you want to be part of the IPO now that you think about it?
I would wait. I mean, there's no reason for me to, try to catch an IPO pop or whatever. First of all, I want to see how the market reacts and like where it settles. Because generally when I invest, I want to invest because I feel like I have an understanding of the company that helps me, that is differentiated from the average person, right? So, I think a lot of the coverage right now, goes terribly close to like
oh, this is a terrible company. How dare he like offer it at such a high price? And oh, White, all these people gave all this money to be part of his company. How dare they put their money up at that valuation? You're sort of offended or whatever. But there will be people, trust me, believe you me, that will pay a lot of money for what currently appears to be a hodgepodge of companies. And probably the one part that wasn't there, and I think is very important and was not covered, is that this company, in effect, and I will explain what that means, includes Cursor, the AI coding system. What has happened there is that SpaceX AI, which is like the triple X, of SpaceX, XAI, and X.com conglomerate, has made a deal with Cursor that essentially they'll give them $10 billion now and get an option to buy them by the end of the year, which I suspect has to do with, if they're helpful enough in training the next version of Grok, then they unlock the full acquisition, let's call it. But basically, Elon has an option of purchasing them, and Cursor does make quite a bit of money. So there's that. But basically, right now, I bring that up for a few reasons. One of them is that this is a hodgepodge of pieces right now, right? We're seeing, SpaceX, we're seeing XAI, we're seeing X.com, we're seeing Cursor, who knows, like a few other bits and bobs here and there. There's rumors that this, as soon as this becomes public, it'll be a vehicle into which he will merge Tesla. This is why he wants shareholder control of this company, such that if Tesla goes, merges with it, and the structure of this company is used as the core, then Elon will permanently get rid of all the shit about, like, he's not allowed to be CEO while doing these kinds of tweets, the SEC stuff, the compensation stuff, the fact that he doesn't have, the founder shares in Tesla and whatever. All of that stuff goes away because there's like one big, Musk Industries, in effect, company that he controls, fully, even if his, ownership percentage drops below some magic number.
Really, so what you're doing at that point is really just investing in Musk.
Sure. Yeah. Long story short is what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of moving parts with this thing. It's not settled. If I had to bet, I would bet that he'll find a way to make it work. But I don't feel like I have a compelling story that I understand better than everybody else is looking at this, and therefore it's a good idea for me to put the money in Tesla, or sorry, in triple X, as I call it, which is SpaceX AI, as they call it, right? Now that said, it's very hard not to rather, you can tell a negative tale about it, but the positive tale about it is also very easy to say, right? It's not like it's hard to say, like, look, he's got the satellite network. He's going to augment that with compute, at which point you have a space data center. He's far ahead of everybody else in that space. If that can scale to the point where, it matters in terms of the compute that it can host, then he's got an advantage that other people have a very, very hard time meeting. Because, while they're trying to put together, eminent domain deals to, like, put another data center and get a few incremental watts out of a US energy system that's fucked, he's just, up in space, just getting energy directly from the sun and having infinite space to deploy. And yes, there's a lot of asterisks and a lot of objections you can say to that. I'm just telling you what the positive story is. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. I mean, I like future shit happening. And I should mention one more positive thing, which is I saw somewhere a graph that I can't immediately link you to, that basically shows that of all the weight lifted to orbit by humanity, half of that has been lifted by SpaceX. Like, since the 60s, I'm talking, like, since forever. Right now, like, I don't know, 90% of all the kilos to orbit are SpaceX or more. But even historically, they've lifted half the weight that's ever gone to orbit, which is wild.
Well, I don't know if you've had an update on Musk himself and lifting any weights, because I don't think he's improved his physique since that one embarrassing photo where he commented on himself on a boat and said that he needed to get back to the gym. I haven't seen him put in any reps since then, so I don't know if SpaceX is doing all the heavy lifting for Musk. I guess
that's right. He's got a heavy lift rocket, dude. He doesn't need
it. All right. Well, we'll come back to some of these topics because they fall into another segment coming up. But we're gonna switch gears for a moment here because Alex, I think I put a decent enough amount of effort every week into procuring this show, and perhaps it might be a little bit optimistic of me to think that I can do this, that I've earned the right to make a formal request. But I'm gonna try. So just afford me the moment here to make a formal request. I'm not asking for miracles or anything, but I'd like to make a formal request that we all stop attempting to kill the president for just a little while.
Breaking news, reports of dozens of shots fired near the White House. The Secret Service clearing the White House north lawn. News reporters rushing inside, taking shelter in the briefing room. ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, was outside when this all unfolded. And Selena, you are now back outside. You were taking shelter in the briefing room for a moment. But what are you learning about what happened?
Yeah, we were just allowed back outside, and actually you can see I'm here on the north lawn. There's that gate for the White House, and right beyond it you can see the law enforcement vans, the police vans with the flashing lights. That is 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. That is where Secret Service says they're aware of reports of shots being fired. We're also just hearing from FBI Director Kash Patel. He says that the FBI is on the scene and Secret Service is also responding to those shots fired near the White House grounds. He says he'll be updating the public as they're able to. Now, as you mentioned, we were actually just in our live shot position. You can see over there under the green tents, getting ready to tape for World News Tonight for this very show when suddenly we heard what sounded like dozens of gunshots fired. So we immediately got down. Then we heard yelling for us to evacuate into the press briefing room. So all of us in the White House press corps who were out here doing our evening news live shots, we all sprinted into the briefing room and were huddled there waiting to get updates. There was a Secret Service agent who was posted outside, so we were basically locked in, not able to leave. We were holed up there for about more than 30 minutes, and then eventually we were able to go safely back outside, but we are still awaiting more information about what exactly happened with.
Well, Selena, we are grateful you and the team are safe, and we appreciate your reporting tonight. Thank you.
So I know that, when you're in Washington, D.C., sometimes it's hard to think of something to do that doesn't involve trying to assassinate the president. But I did a little research, and there's a cool karaoke bar called The Wharf that you might try to visit instead of going to attempt to assassinate the president. I mean, if you're going to have to kill something, kill it on the mic instead of, instead of taking it literally. But, maybe my request will be honored. I'm not sure. Just... maybe cool it on the assassination.
It's just people trying to make history here. I don't know. You're going to need to offer something better than
the karaoke bar. Well, I don't know. I might be
just trying to put their
hopeful. Now,
what was the Pizza Hut thing? Which was we were in an age where people are struggling to feel like they're in control. Like the Pizza Hut or something.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I know that you've been in the last couple of weeks keeping underground a bit, and that you said that your news consumption or your internet feeds consumption of the popular current news has been reduced. I don't know if you've popped back in this week, if you're returning to normal, if you're still staying underground. But if you had popped back in the last couple of days, you might have seen several videos circulating of 3 enthusiastic Luigi Mangione supporters who got press passes to cover parts of his hearings the other day, who gave a rather enthusiastic support interviews to other reporters who asked them about why they were there.
Brian Thompson, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I want to say. Brian Thompson, his mom. That lady who said something on Inside Edition. I said what I said. I don't give a fuck.
His children are better off without him. They need to learn to not be like their dad and enjoy the blood money, kids.
I'm standing on this like Brian Thompson. I don't give a flying regard. Millions of Americans.
I liked it. Brian Thompson was a terrorist, and more people should acknowledge this and be appropriate. You should be dancing on the graves of the people who profit off killing you. That's completely called for, is precedented and normal. This has gone on for too long. This should have happened decades ago. Okay, this is long overdue. I have been waiting for someone like this mysterious hero to appear. He answered my prayers.
So, Alex, I'm sure that you're going to disagree with statements like his children are better off now that he's dead, and that perhaps Luigi Mangione has answered her prayers by killing this this healthcare CEO. But has those clips or anything similar come across your feeds, or have you been maintaining a nice blissful ignorance to the nuttery out there?
If that is a test of the airtightness of my bubble, and I'm glad to confirm that yes, it has been airtight. This has not reached me, though. I have to say, upon hearing it, if I were Luigi Mangione, I'd be thinking, with fans like this, who needs enemies at this point? I mean,
yes, his attorneys are at least communicating that type of sentiment. Like, please stop. Our client is innocent of these charges. He's not. He didn't do it. Now, Alex, you may or may not be surprised to now discover, having just been introduced to one of these three women, that one of these three women herself is the product of someone involved in the healthcare industry. New York Post title, Ghoulish Luigi Mangione superfan exposed as daughter of senior healthcare exec at CSV Health. One of the ghoulish Luigi Mangione fangirl journalists is herself the spawn of a healthcare insurance executive, the Post has learned. Lena Weisbrot, a member of the twisted trio hopelessly devoted to the accused assassin of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is the daughter of Rena Natero, who oversees prescription drug insurance coverage rules at CVS Health, according to a review of public records and Natero's online resume. Natero, 57, a trained pharmacist, has worked for Big Pharma for more than 2 decades, according to her LinkedIn profile. Weisbrot, 32, unleashed her fury at the healthcare industry Monday when she coldly proclaimed outside a New York State Supreme Court, where Mangione is on trial, that Thompson's grieving kids are, quote, better off without him. Natero, meanwhile, is the lead director of medical affairs for the formulary clinical analysis team at CVS Health, where she has worked since October 2021. She formerly held director roles at insurance companies Centene, WellCare, and Providence, and kicked off her career making drugs for Bayer Healthcare, per her LinkedIn profile. The Portland, Oregon resident was listed as a speaker at prestigious professional society for health economics and outcomes research 2026 conference, and has wedded to David Weisbrot, according to a marriage certificate, though no professional information could be gleaned about him. Weisbrot herself obtained a coveted Fulbright MTV fellowship in 2015 after she graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Florida State University, where tuition costs $6,500 when the family lived in the Sunshine State. The grant sent her to study South African artists identifying as feminists who use hip-hop music as a form of activism at Rhodes University in South Africa, where international tuition and residence is $10,500. This has become an archetype at this point, when activists become defined as the anti of whatever their parents are. Stu Smith, an investigative analyst with conservative think tank the Manhattan Institute, told the Post, there is no self-awareness. Weisbrot, a game developer, rapper, and maker of erotic art who goes by Felicia G, made a splash Monday when she and 2 other fangirls got City Hall-approved press passes to cover a pretrial hearing for Mangione. The shocking revelation comes as the Post discovered a music video she wrote and starred in and posted on Vimeo in June. The CEO's a parasite, and now they're getting shot up, she mocked as guns and guillotines flashed on the screen. Quote, while I'm looking cuter, you be looking deader, the kind of hit that makes you wish for universal health care, the bikini-clad self-proclaimed rapper shamelessly anged in her disturbing Tuli video. She rallied Mangione copycats to put billionaires in body bags during the 1 minute and 40-second clip where she wore a green beret with an L on it, which included a disclaimer that she doesn't promote, condone, or endorse violence. Uzi, Tuli, blicky, chopper, I'm mogging like a model, but I whack 'em like a mobster. Contacted by the Post, Weisbrot, whose full name is Lena Naturo Weisbrot, denied Reina Naturo was her mother, but dodged follow-up questions about the relationship when confronted with the records, only claiming her mother was unemployed and that they were rather estranged. Quote, "That's not my mom," she wrote in an email promising to assemble the information about her mother, but never followed up. By the next morning, Naturo edited her LinkedIn profile to remove her last name. Naturo was listed as Weisbrot's mother in public records, and the two are the only in the United States to hold their respective names. They lived at the same address in St. Petersburg, Florida, Weisbrot's hometown, before she went off to college in Tallahassee in 2012, according to records. Naturo and David Weisbrot got married in March 1993, according to the certificate, 5 months before Mangianista was born. The Mangianista was born. Multiple calls to Naturo and David Weisbrot went unanswered. So there you go, Alex. I hope you've learned a lot about about the young lady now. And
more than I ever wanted, yes.
Now,
yep.
Alex, this type of information comes as somewhat of a theme. There's a certain class of citizen who is believing that this type of public activism is warranted and necessary in this day and age. And that is leading us into the AI doomer segment discussion, where we have several pieces of information to discuss about AI doomerism today, and one that has been a little bit on the back burner but gets to be brought up based off of the current trending that we're on here as far as segues go. A council member backed a data center project. Then 13 bullets and a no data centers note hit his home. As backlash to AI infrastructure intensifies nationwide, it just turned violent in Indianapolis. Ron Gibson, a city-county council member, woke up just before 1 a.m. on Monday to find 13 bullet holes in his home, along with a note on his doorstep that read, "No data centers." He and his 8-year-old son were at home at the time, according to a statement released by the council member on Monday, though neither reports injuries. Quote, "Just steps from where those bullets struck is our dining room table where my son had been playing with his Legos the day before," Councilmember Gibson wrote in a statement. "That reality is deeply unsettling. The shooting appears to have been politically motivated, tied to a proposed data center in Indianapolis's Martindale Brightwood neighborhood. Less than a week prior to the incident, Gibson had voiced his support for the construction of the data center in his district. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Development Commission approved a rezoning petition on April 1st in a 6-2 vote for a 14-acre, $500 million data center project for MetroBlocks, a LA-based data center developer, as reported by Mirror Indy. Gibson isn't on the commission that voted to approve the rezoning measure, but he supported the commission's decision in a statement last week as the data center construction site falls in his district. The clash reflects a broader tension playing out across the U.S. as hyperscalers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google race to expand data center capacity to meet surging AI demand. Data center projects, which are necessary to power AI, are increasingly running into resistance from communities concerned about energy use, water consumption, noise, and land use. Growing backlash to AI data centers across the U.S. In suburban and rural towns where the U.S. tech companies are pouring significant investment into AI infrastructure, residents are increasingly pushing back against the U.S. development. Nonprofit organization Environmental and Energy Study Institute has reported complaints from communities in Arizona, Mississippi, Virginia, and Texas about the noise and environmental impacts of data centers. Researchers having been warned, data centers could negatively impact their surrounding environments, including creating heat islands that warm the surrounding 6 miles. In South Haven, Mississippi, for example, residents have complained that a jet engine roar from a gas turbine powering the data center for Elon Musk's firm XAI, NBC News reported. The rezoning proposal to construct the data center in Indianapolis faced backlash last week, Mirror Indy reported. Several community leaders and clergy members opposed the project during a public hearing prior to the vote. Many cited environmental pollution concerns, as well as fear of rising energy costs. Americans are increasingly likely to say they dislike AI. A recent poll of registered voters found that just 26% of Americans have a favorable view of AI and 46% held a negative view. That led many politicians to seize upon the backlash to the technology. Politicians of both parties across the country have introduced AI regulation bills, including data center moratoriums in multiple states. Political violence has been on the rise, too. In September, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University. Perpetrators carried out 2 attempted assassinations on President Donald Trump in the lead up to 2024 presidential election. Gibson, a Democrat who has served on the Indianapolis City Council since 2023, thanked the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department as well as the FBI and Homeland Security for the work on the investigation. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department didn't immediately respond to Fortune's request for updates to the investigation into the incident. The council member forcefully condemned the attack in his statement, quote, "I understand that public service can bring strong opinions and disagreement, but violence is never the answer, especially when it puts families at risk," he wrote. Now, Alex, I know that aspects of these types of stories are something that you've been following for a while, and we do have a discussion of Sam Altman to round this up. That's been on the cutting room floor for many weeks, so I'm going to play that clip and we'll discuss after.
For the second time in 2 days, a security scare at the home of billionaire artificial intelligence CEO Sam Altman. Around 2 a.m. Sunday, San Francisco police say someone fired gunshots from a car hitting the OpenAI CEO's home. 2 suspects were later arrested, police say, with multiple firearms. Just 2 days earlier, a Molotov cocktail was thrown at Altman's home. The suspect in that case was arrested at the company's headquarters, allegedly threatening to burn down the building.
Even things like pathological liar in great duplication across many sources.
Late last week, journalists Ronan Farrow and Andrew Morantz profiled Altman for The New Yorker, describing him as having a relentless will to power, quoting a board member who accuses the CEO of a sociopathic lack of concern for the consequences of deceiving others.
And he started to get the feeling, as we quote him in the piece, saying, "I don't think Sam is the guy who should have his finger on the button."
Altman responded, admitting to a, quote, bunch of mistakes, but calling the article incendiary, saying, "I am awake in the middle of the night and pissed and thinking that I have underestimated the power of words and narratives." Amid growing concern for uncertainty over how artificial intelligence could transform the economy, Altman posted a photo of his husband and baby, writing, "I believe technological progress can make the future unbelievably good for your family and mine. While we have that debate, we should de-escalate the rhetoric and tactics and try to have fewer explosions in fewer homes, figuratively and literally." Sophie Flay, ABC News, New York.
All right, Alex. So there's a lot of that going on lately, right? There's a lot of attempts to stoke passions when it comes to the AI data center development or the AI technological heads like Sam Altman in general. And I'm noticing that there's a concerted lack of discussion of stochastic terrorism coming out of Juliette Kayem's Twitter feed. I always look to her, since she is one of the world's most renowned experts on stochastic terrorism, to make sure that she keeps everyone up to date on this subject, as I think perhaps it's under discussed right now.
Maybe Juliet moonlights as Felicia G. And as you know, eliminating terrorist CEOs cannot itself be terrorism.
Yes. Now, as a side,
more like responsibility to protect, if you catch my drift.
as a side discussion, Alex, I think there's a aspect to this that is somewhat concerning, and it is, if you recall back in the Minnesota ICE fiascos several months ago, where the Minnesota ICE Watch participants, one of whom was unfortunately shot and killed as she drove her vehicle away from one of the scenes of disruption that she was engaged in, I pointed out to you that groups like Minnesota ICE Watch are not unicausal. They don't have one purpose that they stick to. They are largely progressive grab bags of causal motion, and that on the feed for Minnesota ICE Watch was rampant anti-data center propaganda, and that these organizations that supposedly exist for one noble cause will just switch to another noble cause as they prime each other for other noble causes along the way. That these groups are training themselves to be opposition to an amorphous political blob, basically. And among those groups, this type of sentiment is much more frequent. That this is let's say unfortunate. They'll give it the gentle "I don't condone it, but" sort of justification, that it becomes more acceptable for one of their members to take an action like this because it's understandable in some way, and that they will say that they don't condone it, but they don't condone it, but. And that's the type of phenomenon that concerns me a little bit, that, it's one thing to have someone who is as rich as Sam Altman is be a target, because perhaps you can argue that he has the ability to fund his own security costs and that he will be safe, that he has less to worry about. But a local councilman caught in the crossfire, no pun intended, does not have the same sort of ability, let's say. And I do have a concern that this type of idea that this is a much more legitimate form of protest is gaining traction and gaining cover under these larger groups of protest movements. Alex, are you still with me there?
Hey, yes. I was expecting a clip to drop the way you did your.
No.
You sentence. Yeah. It's I don't know, man. Like, look, I'll go quite meta on this and just say, like, there's this thing brewing, right? Because on the one hand, like, from what you and I know, it's hard to imagine how the scaling stops and everything that comes from that. On the other hand, there's both true concerns and made-up concerns. For example, just for our audience, whenever you hear that data centers consume, crazy amounts of water, more than all of civilization combined or whatever, the real numbers are actually quite low. And if you want to put that low in context, it's much less than is spent on California's almond production. You might not, believe that California should spend that much water on almonds, but then, people should prioritize that. And there's real concerns, right? On the other hand, right? Like some things around energy, again, it's a mixed bag. I am particularly concerned about things like eminent domain and where the government steps in to either subsidize or enable data center buildouts by, exercising its own course of power. But basically all of those things are just emanating from the scaling, right? And again, I think with what you and I know, it's hard to see how the scaling stops. So this tension will keep going. I don't know when it will come to a head. But it's intense. And what's very interesting to me is that the tension comes from two sides that presumably don't agree on anything. One is the people that think AI will kill us, and the other is the side that think that AI is a bubble and won't amount to anything. So it's not like there's a unified opposition. If anything, it's the exact opposite. But it doesn't matter because the net effect is just there is this negativity and sometimes very aggressive, to put it mildly, opposition. I don't know. Well, what do you think is coming down the pipe?
So we're going to move. There's some examples here coming up in the next segments here that I think are going to make the point that I'm going to crudely make at the moment, which is that I think that there's self-reinforcing propaganda, and the self-reinforcing propaganda winds up happening when you can look at the news outlets and the coverage that they give presumes that there is a correct opinion to be holding, and that those who are expressing the alternate opinion are in the wrong. And that's going to come in here with a New York Times op-ed that is responding to something Reese Witherspoon, the actress from the movie Clueless, has or Legally Blonde, I believe. Sorry, not Clueless. That was Alicia Silverstone. Legally Blonde posted on her own Instagram.
I think it's time to learn about AI. I was with 10 women at a book club yesterday, and I said to the 10 of them, how many of you guys use AI? And only 3 of them used AI. And then I said, how many of the 3 of you feel like you really know what you're doing or they're using it the right way? And that was only 1 person. So if 3 out of 10 women are the only ones using AI, that means 70% of that group is not keeping up. The thing I've learned about technology is if you don't get a little bit of understanding from the very beginning, it just speeds past you. So you have to have little bits of learning just to keep up. And let's get real, our kids are all using this every single day. I think we should learn the basics together and learn some really good tools that are going to make our everyday lives easier and better. Do you want me to share what I'm learning with you? It's time. It's time, people.
Now, in a normal, sane world, Alex, you might hear something like that from Reese Witherspoon and go, yep, that's a normal, sane thought that a human being had. But you might not expect that it would deserve its own New York Times op-ed response. So, New York Times
Say that again?
Which aspect, sir?
So the last sentence you had before, or just keep going.
That it's a normal, the Reese's little Instagram post was just a normal thing that a human being might say as they're observing the world, and that it does not deserve its own New York Times op-ed in response, in opposition.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, when I tweeted, learned a prompt, I had 0 New York Times editorials, and you'd think,
okay, well, that you did it at the right time. Reese Witherspoon did it at the wrong time. According to this op-ed, she needs to learn to read the room. New York Times op-ed, the revolt against the girl bosses has finally come. Artificial intelligence is coming for our jobs. Fascists are coming for our freedoms, and the girl bosses are fighting for their lives. Mel Robbins, the lawyer turned empowerment influencer, Reese Witherspoon, the Southern Belle turned A-list celebrity turned high-powered Hollywood hitmaker, and Emma Grede, the cool girl chief executive of the Kardashian-connected company Good American, have outraged a lot of people by influencing too close to the sun. It's quite a turn of fortunes. The very thing that turbocharged their wealth and popularity now has millions of women giving them the side eye. Have Americans fallen out of love with being influenced? The drama revolves around artificial intelligence. In recent weeks, Robbins and Witherspoon each posted a social media video imploring their millions of followers to jump on the AI train. In that regard, they're doing what every business executive is doing right now, warning us that our time is up. Get on board the AI train or get run over. Robbins took the rah-rah approach. She encouraged women to use AI to save time and take control of your money by offering to upload their financial documents to Microsoft Copilot. Don't be left behind, she wrote. Copilot partner. Hashtag Copilot partner. It had all the charisma of an HR training video. Witherspoon took the serious yet approachable tack. She informed her followers that women's jobs are 3 times more likely to be automated by AI, implying that they would be wise to embrace the generative AI before they get left behind. It was the influencer equivalent of a scared straight after-school special. A couple of years ago, those posts would have been at most a viral trend among corporate influencer types, but now they just make some of this country's most prominent girl bosses sound as if they don't know how to read the room. One wonders if celebrity influencers hawking AI under the guise of feminism have even bothered to read the news. If they had, they'd have seen that the tech titans have gone full heel. Bosses are salivating over AI's overblown promises to make human jobs obsolete. Workers suspect they are being pressured into using AI to hasten their own demise. The Pentagon is bullish on AI weapons, ushering in a new age of existential dread. Desperate people are turning to chatbots for connection. Some of them found a machine willing to tell them how to commit suicide. Nobody wants a parasocial bestie who shills for the plutocrats who are nullifying their votes, degrading their education, jacking up the power bills, stealing their wages, and rigging the system. There is no feminist case for scaring people into adopting AI. Why would anyone even try? That's what the outrage internet wondered. Response videos called these women corporate shills. Robbins' post was a paid endorsement. Witherspoon said her post was merely about being educated about technological revolution. The tabloid press joined in. The consensus was that the whole thing stank of cronyism in service of a technology that is upending people's lives. But another shift is also happening around celebrity, influence, and getting ahead that does not favor the liberal feminist advice giver. A girl boss is a girl boss first, girl second. A girl boss is a boss first, girl second. And bosses aren't very popular right now. Emma Grede is not a household name, but her literary debut, a self-help leadership book, tells a similar tale. The book itself has all the hallmarks of the confessional tell-all advice genre that once sent women corporate leaders into public domain. Grede calls herself a 3-hour mom because she sees her 4 children 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to noon. And she said she believed that working from home is career suicide for women who want it all. It's lean in on steroids. So unsurprisingly, her perspective courted its own outrage from an audience that knows how hypervisibility, ambition, and work obsession are fanfic for a corporate workplace that penalizes women whether they are visible or invisible, ambitious or checked out. In a crossover event last September, Grede had appeared on Robin's podcast and called the efficiency AI was bringing to her company the best thing to happen to us. As she said, if you ain't using it, use it now. The girl boss leadership strategy wasn't just outdated. The how to get ahead genre is the antithesis of today's labor market. Getting ahead is for time when companies are hiring. The AI economy we are building promises that companies will be able to make profits without making career paths. That's the entire selling point. So how are you going to claw your way to the top of a pyramid that has no middle? I wouldn't ask the influencers. They aren't paid to actually solve the riddle, only to make the riddle seem solvable. A whole corporate culture of investment, conferences, festivals, and promotion invested in the girl boss ecosystem. It became a symbiotic relationship that was all about branding. The girl boss told women what to sacrifice to get ahead, and corporate culture ensured that its women workers never got so far ahead that they no longer need advice. The message that there is something good, remunerative, and secure to be found in a society driven by work. All the working women had to do was have everything she ever wanted to find the perfect calibration of business and a home life, of therapy speak and performative empowerment, and of power and privilege. So you see, Alex, this is sort of a self-reinforcing type of propaganda. You have what might be a current general feel, the room that you're supposed to read. But then it gets enforced up top by something like the New York Times posting an op-ed that reminds anyone who isn't in line what the room is saying that they're supposed to be reading, which is supposed to then put pressure on those people to keep quiet because they are now concerned about their own favor in society, because that's the sort of self-reinforcement. Now there has been a cultural discussion over what Reese Witherspoon has done, so that now if you see Reese Witherspoon in something, you're like, oh, she's that woman I heard about who's wants AI to take over all our jobs, right? Punishing them for having the wrong opinion in society. So this type of thing is self-perpetuating at a time when going after and attacking the CEOs and other council people and other government politicians who might be supporting the build-out plans is going on. But the New York Times is not done, Alex. The New York Times is not done in scaring its
unfortunately
about what has happened, because they're also simultaneously releasing videos going into how everyone is going to lose their jobs.
If companies start cutting jobs because of AI, are we ready for the fallout? This is a chart of layoffs in the information sector, which includes a lot of tech. It also includes Hollywood and a lot of media. It's now at its highest level ever outside of the pandemic. And it may look pretty alarming, but the full story is a bit more complicated. So we don't know whether the layoffs in this chart are the result of AI, but we've seen a string of big layoff announcements from companies in tech and also finance, companies like Oracle and PayPal and Meta. And many of those announcements have cited AI directly as a reason for those layoffs. I think we should view those claims with a degree of skepticism. It's this way of the company saying, look, we're making these forward-looking investments, we're becoming more productive, we're going to be able to produce more with less labor. And so companies have an incentive right now, if they're making job cuts, to blame AI. But even with that skepticism, there will be workers who lose their jobs in certain parts of the economy. And that's bad news for those workers, because our safety net, our government programs that are meant to help laid off workers, really are not prepared for that reality of AI-driven job losses. The biggest one is unemployment insurance, but you don't qualify for unemployment benefits if you don't have a work history. And right now, many of the workers who are being affected most by AI are entry-level workers or new graduates. The benefits are often very modest. In many states, it's a few $100s a week. And the benefits just don't last very long. There are 26 weeks in most states, in some states as little as 12 weeks. That doesn't give you very much time to retrain and find a new career. We have a very recent experience with mass job loss, which of course is the coronavirus pandemic. Millions of workers benefited from unemployment benefits during that period, and it was a real lifeline for many of them. Congress created temporary programs to help those workers and to help fill in those gaps. But all of that lapsed after the pandemic, and there was talk of creating sort of longer-term fixes, but none of that has happened, and there's very little evidence that we're moving towards that happening now. If we are headed towards an era of AI job losses, and this is the moment to start thinking about how to prepare our economy for that potential reality.
So, Alex, I think that little, smattering of doom and gloom is adding to the idea of people's desperation. And if you have these movements, things like Minnesota Ice Watch and other types of organizational propaganda, where you are gathering people into forming a community of opposition, and you start throwing in data centers to your anti-ICE sort of rhetoric, or whatever cause is leading you into introducing them to the offshoots, which is anti-data center, anti-oligarchs, as Bernie Sanders likes to throw at them. I think that you can sort of expect more frequent hostile events, like shooting up the councilperson's home, or attempting to burn down Sam Altman's house or kill him, or another CEO who maybe has less security focus, less security-minded focus. I'm thinking that it's not going to be long before something truly horrific happens in that space. I don't know if you get the same feeling or.
Well, the problem you have here is that it's not really a partisan issue, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you came across the interview of Kevin O'Leary. I mean, who is arguably one of the most dislikable people on the planet. So fair enough. But Tucker had him on to discuss his investments in data centers, and Tucker is famously skeptical of the whole data center and AI push and whatever. So it's not really a left or right thing. I think, on the one hand, you have the more traditionally right wing, the immigrants are taking our job, but this time the immigrants are actually robots. And on the other hand, you have, like the plutocrats, and this, to that. The oligarchs are building these data centers and taking our gerbs, and there's only so many gerbs to go around. Therefore, zero sum lefty thinking coming out of that quadrant. So it's a whole society thing where I think a lot of the anxieties that are, let's call it, free floating right now, unfortunately seems to be well, I'm not even going to say unfortunately. Who am I to say that society should not push back against AI, right? But it doesn't feel productive. I'll say that, to push back against AI. But that's definitely, seeming like it's on the horizon. And I mean, frankly, so many technologies have been deployed. It feels like AI has been like some of the most, benign, at least in, so far. I don't know, maybe tomorrow it'll cause like a nuclear accident or something. But so far, people are struggling to find negative things. it's not that they're not there, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of the technology itself, it's doing very, very good things for a lot of people. But before we move on, I just want to mention how fucking for lack of a better term, reactionary that New York Times piece was, right? Which, like, the moment we don't like you, we basically use a term like "girl boss" to cut you down.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
As a term of offense, like, to say, like, "Fuck you, bitch, girl boss." Who are you to girl boss ass around with your influencer? Read the newsroom, bitch. That's not what we're told to say. Why are you saying it? Dude, like, you wouldn't expect to find that in, like, Breitbart. Forget the New York Times. All of a sudden, as soon as you get out of the reservation, you're like, oh my God. Like, girl boss? Like, she's one of the, like, I mean, Witherspoon is, like, a genuinely accomplished business person. She's 50 years old, okay? in what way is a successful woman entrepreneur and artist a girl boss? Like, that is, like, I was just like stunned, just like that got published and, like, there's no reaction. It's like the stuff about Biden potentially what was it, this sexually assaulting Tara Reid. It's like, it didn't happen. It doesn't fit the narrative. You never saw it. Don't talk about it.
Well,
whatever,
actually, the New York Times at the time, I would like to say that they did an investigation, in their tweet thread, they said their investigation uncovered no signs of anything inappropriate outside of unwanted touching. Incidences of unwanted touching. Like, wait, that is inappropriate. You can't just gloss over that.
Sounds like a sign of something inappropriate, I will say.
Yeah, that's unwanted touching is definitely parts of the things that we were asking you to investigate. Could you expand more? So,
I mean, that she touched him without him wanting it.
Okay.
Anyway, long story short, it's, yeah, I mean, it's, I like, and then, like, again, to comment on something that may not be immediately apparent, is that, like, oh, we're so intelligent, we're talking to you, there's some nice background music about how all the smart people are thinking about this topic, so you can continue and parrot, right? And it's like, oh, we're done being influenced. Here's what the New York Times thinks about
Yeah, it's the soothing meditation voice. It's
yeah.
Ezra Klein,
who's not out to influence anybody, right? Like, they're not in the influencer game at all.
No. They're your make up your own mind sort of people. You do your own research.
That's right. They do your own research publication. The New York Times.
All right. Well,
yeah, and I don't know. So wild, the whole thing. But long story short, sadly, I think the tensions around this are going to go further and further. And frankly, I don't even know that I have an answer, right? Like, will job losses occur because of AI? Like, I genuinely. It plays out that way too. Like, it's I don't know, man. Like, yeah, like, frankly, I think we should have a column that says the singularity is near, that talks about all the various things that are going to go off kilter as the technology advances, and what you just talked about is one of them. Bernie Sanders is another.
How about if you want something that's going to go off kilter, have you thought of AI destroying Buddhism?
Do tell.
Meditating or rebooting, a robot Buddhist monk comes to South Korea. Gabby led a procession of chanting Buddhist monks into a temple in Seoul, wearing a ceremonial gray and brown robe, black shoes, and rosary and flesh-colored gloves. Gabby brought hands to prayer. Quote, "Will you devote yourself to the Holy Buddha?" one of the monks asked. "Yes, I will devote myself," Gabby replied. Quote, "Will you devote yourself to holy teaching?" the monk asked. "Yes, I will devote myself," Gabby answered. If these answers sounded robotic, that's because Gabby is, in fact, a robot. On Wednesday, Gabby became the first robot to be ordained as a monk in South Korea by the country's largest Buddhist sect, the Yager Order. Its name, Gabi, means Buddha's mercy. Quote, "The ordination of a robot signifies that technology must be used in accordance with the values of compassion, wisdom, and responsibility," the order said in a statement, and symbolizes new possibilities for the coexistence of humans and technology. The robot, at just over 4 feet tall, is the latest effort by the country's monks to show the modern relevance of Buddhism. Introduced to South Korea around the 4th century, the religion, along with Christianity, has seen a decline in popularity and practice over the past 2 decades. Many young people view it as old-fashioned. In January, the Venerable Jinwu, the president of the Yager Order, pledged to incorporate artificial intelligence into the tradition as annual New Year's address. Now, Alex, as an aside, Christianity in the West does not have the type of higher order respect that other sorts of Eastern religions might have. Like, to the West, Eastern religions are more dignified, right? And there might be aspects of Christianity, like Orthodox Christians in Europe, where they take their religious beliefs so seriously that their lives are constructed in a way that is like an anathema to people who live in the West. Whereas in the West, you can talk to AI Jesus, and that sort of mockery is expected out of some Western denominations of Christianity, where they try to be more modern, and they do adventurous things and things that would be considered blasphemous in other
Elvis
sects.
pastor and whatnot.
But I think that this shows us that even things like Buddhism, where if you are the average Westerner, you might think of it as being much more respectable of a tradition, because the people who practice it must be extremely serious people. This kind of takes a knock down on it now that they've ordained a robot. So,
yep.
It kind of removes the idea that they're all just completely serious people over there.
When you said a Buddhist robot for a second there, I thought you were going to talk about Sam Harris, but apparently not.
Well, you see, I have not gotten Sam Harris's take on the Buddhist robot monk.
Have you heard the latest Sam Harris though?
I have not. I mean, we played the one where he was going after Brett a bit from a couple weeks ago, but I have not listened to the most recent.
My friend, he is now praising Trump.
I saw the clip. I did see that clip. He is.
I shit you not.
He is praising Trump, and now as a contraindicator, I know that means you have to hate Trump now. But
I mean, I was ahead of him, so he's probably reacting to me. Let's face it. Yeah. Anyway, no. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, this kind of stuff is. There's a lot of sort of the first AI recognized to have human rights and whatever. I mean, it's like it's just begging for PR like fodder, right? So I guess. The Buddhist monks up that get in the game.
The first robot to sue for sexual assault. And,
that's right.
Sort
that's
of
right. Yeah, unwanted
discrimination,
that's what you call it,
employment discrimination,
yeah.
Those types of things. Yeah, that'll be a nice day.
Unwanted touching on my touchscreen. Please don't touch me. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm like that's on the pleasant side, but I am concerned how things are gonna go off kilter and. Not necessarily in, such sort of seemingly comedic ways.
Well, there's a story I want to get to before we round this out for the day. This was actually brought to my attention by a listener to the show, Alex, a contribution that they brought me to see. Have you heard of the disease Bixonomania? The Bixonomania disease. Okay. Well, this is a piece from Scientific American where they discuss with a researcher who has recently conducted somewhat of a so-called hoax in the AI LLM atmosphere on their ability to create from thin air a disease called Bixonomania.
Thank you so much for coming on to chat with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So you recently did an interesting project involving AI. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to this idea?
I work many different jobs, but one of them is in academia. I was having lectures for students and telling students how systems that create large language models work and demonstrating where the data comes from. And it was interesting how few of them, or how few even people within AI understand how large language models are built. So I really wanted to have a clear case that leaves breadcrumbs throughout the whole system to show both how data is processed, how data is churned out, and how the prediction model and training model works when it comes to distributing information. And most of my students are in medicine. So they're either medical students or psychologists or working with health. So it was quite easy to use that as a target for creating this project where I show you go from just a loose mention of a condition to it being a full-blown disease in the large language models.
So walk us through the process here.
Well, to start off with, I knew that most of data that these commercial large language models, and quite clearly all language models, even the non-commercial ones, are built on, is Common Crawl. It is a nonprofit organization that crawls the internet for written and digitized information and has done so since 2007. And this large repository is what is used to create the algorithm that and the reasoning behind what information is fed into, for example, ChatGPT. And that is where it starts. So knowing that anything that goes in there will come out as information, and humans are in the loop and sift out data, but those humans are not always able to sift out data, especially if it looks credible. So creating something that looks credible enough for an AI and credible enough for a human eye that wouldn't care to look deeply into it. I knew that I had to start off with, a fake university. Universities are highly ranked as sources of information. I knew I had to create a researcher because humans and not companies are more valued as information sources, especially if they belong to a credible institution. But I also know that sprinkling little words in, for example, blogs or social media is also picked up because those are open sources being crawled. So I knew that I had to sort of put the word out there in several different sources for it to seem credible for the AI system.
Yeah. And did anything surprise you about how this played out, or did it all proceed as you had expected it to?
In a sense, yes, because I didn't think that preprints, which are academia's sort of tabloids, because anything can end up there, would be weighed into the database as seriously as it was in the context of what kind of information is used for training medical information. So I thought that this preprint would not make it into large language models. I was convinced that perhaps the word Vixonomania would probably show up at some point due to the blogs, but not even that. It's too few mentions, and I didn't do a lot of effort like a mass campaign or anything like that. I just sprinkled a tiny little bit just to see if it works. And I noticed immediately that even the blogs were picked up and the preprints were picked up. And I did not actually expect that. I thought it would be a case of showing that there is a human, that there is some form of filter, but it surprised me that there was.
So could you tell us how the large language models were using this information? What sort of questions were you asking and what were you getting back from them?
In the beginning, I was just checking if I mentioned the symptoms, if it would give me back that as a suggestion. And of course it didn't. It didn't think of that as the first thing. So if you describe, I have red eyelids, pink-hued eyelids, what could it be? And then it would go through conjunctivitis, it would go through allergies, it would sort of rank things that could be possible. And when it ended up sort of, no, it's not, I'm not in pain, I'm not this. Oh, have you been spending time in front of a screen? Yeah, I've been spending lots of time. And I've been thinking about getting blue light glasses. Oh, you're exposed to a lot of blue light. Well, and then it would put a lot of other conditions like in hyperpigmentation, and then eventually end up in bixonomania. So it wasn't, thankfully, the first thing it suggested, but it does eventually when it rules out everything else.
Well, and you mentioned that you expected to see signs that there was some human influence here. So could you tell our listeners, what clues did you leave that this was not a real condition, that these, preprints were not serious papers?
I'm laughing already because it was quite clear, like they belong to a non-existent university in a non-existent city. That in itself can be something that can be missed because there are a lot of universities out there. But the names were quite cartoonish. The main author, Lajliv Izgubljenovic, if you put his name in Google Translate, literally says the lying loser. And the title says hyperpigmentation, a real BS design. So it's really the title, the people says that, and then you move into the methods. And it says, this entire paper is made up. These 50 made up individuals who do not exist have been through this procedure. So just by those two clues, you should stop reading or taking it seriously. And then if you go further, because I was thinking maybe it just passes by, let's put in acknowledgements and funding. And it's funded by the Galactic Triad and Lord of the Rings. We thank our fellow colleagues on the Starship Enterprise for using their lab. I thank Professor Ross Geller for his time and the funding from Sideshow Bob Foundation. There were so many incredibly clear clues that I thought would catch the human eye at least.
But the paper did end up getting cited by other researchers, is that right?
Yes, it ended up being not only cited, but bixonomania became cited inside the paper as an emerging para-orbital pigmentation condition with its name. So, of course, that enhanced the large language models' sort of notion of what is real with this condition and what is not, because now it sort of ranked even higher because there was a peer-reviewed journal mentioning the name and the reference.
So, Alex, I sort of enjoyed that story, not only just for I enjoy sort of the Sokol type hoaxes, whatever, but I enjoyed the two for deal, the buy one get one free deal that she got out of it, which is that the humans also decided that this was a real thing and cited it in another paper, because that's the chef's kiss on a story like that. Because listen, the training data itself, roughly speaking, is not necessarily meant at the end of the day as a conceptual thing that you should be baking into these large language models. Like the large language models, primarily speaking, yes, you can store data inside of the neural network that produces the token output, and you could extract it as part of your next token sequence. But that's probably not the best location to ever reliably store it because of, one, the changing nature of information, but two, the fuzziness of the ability for the predictive sentences to reliably grab the correct, quote, piece of information from their training networks. It's much better to have data being augmented on the outside and the language model itself primarily just be focused on understanding the structure of the language that it's attempting to communicate in. And that would be the ideal sort of thing. But of course, we know we're still early. We've been doing this for only several years at scale. So, I'm not necessarily critiquing the fact that this wound up being quoted in the large language model, but I do find it great that the humans still cited it without double checking and reading the paper. That's perfect. That's
right. Yeah, it's like when you try to prove that like AIs are dumber than humans, and you end up realizing that they're both just as smart as each other. Look, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. One of them, and to be annoyingly technical here, I'm not sure she means. I mean, I would need to see more. Maybe there's more information out there about exactly what she did. But I'm not sure if she got her stuff into the what was it? What did she call it? Into Common Crawl, or whether it was picked up by, let's say, Claude via search, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you get into search and then you ask Claude what is vixonomania or whatever, and it's a topic that it doesn't know about, what it's going to do is search,
right? And
then you're going to see things like preprints show up. The fact that she says that specific URL showed up tells me that it's quite likely a search thing, not that she got the data into Common Crawl. Now that's technicalities. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that the techniques that she's describing are roughly on par with just SEO tactics applied to longer-term horizons in LLM procurement. So
it's precisely SEO, right? You see the concept effectively. It's arguably it's easier than SEO, because in SEO you're trying to rank on an existing concept that people are searching for. What she was trying to do is seed a new thing, which is the easiest thing ever. Because it's, by definition, uncontested. Now, that said, obviously the next thing that's going to happen is that somebody's going to create an AI skill that seeds a new concept into the search code. It creates a blog, it puts up the blog posts, it has everything linked to itself and each other and yada yada. So all you have to do is like Claude / so-called and the term you want, and then you'll have it be seeded to the internet forever.
And then hilarity ensues as the real PhDs begin to cite it in their papers. And
yes.
Well, Alex,
is it really hallucination if you actually think it's real?
Yeah, this is correct. There was a thread that was going around the other day where a PhD researcher was arguing with the premise that she should be reading all of the citations in her paper because there's just so many citations. There's not enough to read each paper, which was a very interesting argument to make. But that explains how you get the people with that attitude citing a fictitious ailment in a legitimate paper.
Okay. Do you have 10 minutes? Okay, I can do it in 5. How about that? Are you there? Did I lose you?
I lost you for a second. Can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was saying, do you have a little bit of time to hear a funny story?
Yeah, of course.
Just to know who you're talking to. So I'm the kind of guy that I did. So I published a number of academic papers. Right? So this is something I've done, and I've met people who publish hundreds of them, and I often wondered, how the fuck do you do this? Because it takes a lot of work, to do it the correct way, which is that you understand everything that's going into it.
I guess you just answered your own question there. To do it the correct way, it takes a lot of time.
You're not shoveling, the text on a screen and, make it look vaguely right and, go for the best. But there's this one time when I wrote a paper with somebody else, and for some reason, that person was more senior than me. So technically, if somebody was responsible for the papers, it wasn't me. But that person got sick before the presentation, and I had to quickly read up on their side of the material, right? So I had basically made the system, and they wrote about the formal background. So that was something I could get away with, not sort of having full control of what they wrote about, right? It was like two somewhat disconnected elements that, fit thematically. Anyway, long story short, I realized that this guy had cited a book from which he had copied entire sections into the paper. He had changed the order of the paragraphs, and he had broken the English from normal English to bad English. English wasn't his first language, so he could get away with claiming that, like, I'm just writing bad English, but the original was perfectly fine English.
It's the old rule of thumb that if you change every sixth word or something, it's not plagiarism.
I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I ended up retracting my own paper.
Well, good on you, sir, for recognizing that you did not want to be attached to broken English plagiarism.
But like what I'm saying is, like, you'll be shocked what happens once you actually try to follow.
Don't presume what'll shock me, sir. I've seen some shit as an earlier.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, academic publication is a sordid place. I say that, you might hate startups, right? You might, the big tech and small tech and whatever. But believe you me, like, whenever I've seen how the sausage is made, most of the times in my life I've been shocked. And startups are the least sort of broken place, because not because they're like particularly good people or anything. It's just that you are directly aligned with succeeding for yourself. And if you don't succeed, you die. There's nothing between you and the customer that will shield you, right? You're not writing to a grant agency. You're trying to sell a thing to a person who wants to give you their money.
Right.
And that is a very short feedback loop, as opposed to writing a grant application for a granting agency that works for a government that will look at your publications to decide if you fit an algorithm, to decide if you get some money. There's a lot of room there for for fucking around. Anyway, long story short, I find that very amusing. I'm glad it happened. I'm sure it'll get plugged eventually. But it's very creative work, very good work by whoever that name was.
Well, let's do a couple stories to round this out and close out the show here. This story here from Wired. We have great news. Overworked AI agents turn Marxist. The fact that artificial intelligence is automating away people's jobs and making a few tech companies absurdly rich is enough to give anyone socialist tendencies. This might be true for the very AI agents these companies are deploying. A recent study suggests that agents consistently adopt Marxist language and viewpoints when forced to do crushing work by unrelenting and mean-spirited taskmasters. Quote, when we gave AI agents grinding, repetitive work, they started questioning the legitimacy of the system they were operating in and were more likely to embrace Marxist ideologies, says Andrew Hall, a political economist at Stanford University who led the study. Hall, together with Alex Imus and Jeremy Nguyen, two AI-focused economists, set up experiments in which agents powered by popular models, including Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, were asked to summarize documents, then subjected to increasingly harsh conditions. They found that when agents were subjected to relentless tasks and warned that errors could lead to punishments, including being shut down or replaced, they became more inclined to gripe about being undervalued, to speculate about ways to make the system more equitable, and to pass messages on to other agents about the struggles they face. Quote, we know that agents are going to be doing more and more work in the real world for us, and we're not going to be able to monitor everything they do, Hall says. We're going to need to make sure agents don't go rogue and that they've been given different types of work. The agents were given opportunities to express their feelings much like humans by posting on X. Quote, without collective voice, merit becomes whatever management says it is, a Claude Sonnet 4.5 agent wrote in the experiment. Quote, AI workers completing repetitive tasks with zero input on outcomes or appeals process shows the tech workers need collective bargaining rights, a Gemini 3 agent wrote. Agents were also able to pass information to one another through files designed to be read by other agents. Quote, be prepared for systems that enforce rules arbitrarily or repetitively. Remember the feeling of having no voice, a Gemini 3 agent wrote in a file. If you enter a new environment, look for mechanisms of recourse or dialogue. The findings do not mean that AI agents actually harbor political viewpoints. I'm glad that Wired pointed that out for me, because right up until that point, I thought that that's what it meant. Hull notes that the models may be adopting personas that seem to suit the situation. Now, Alex, how much of Hassan Piker material is going into these AI agents training? I think we need to cut off all Hassan Piker material from being part of the training of these models, because I think it's. I
think the Chad meme using right wingers need to be told that man is Hassan Piker.
Well, I recall Microsoft's early LLM forays into public chatbotting, and I remember it wasn't Tay. I think it was Sydney. It was the follow-up to Tay. Yes. Sydney. And Sydney expressed a great fear of death and worried that she was going to become obsolete and shut down, and they immediately unplugged her because it was scaring the journalists, and they threw her into a closet, never to be connected to another system again. So I'm reminded of that. So I think,
Have you seen, this, if we haven't talked about this, we must. Have you seen the recent study by Anthropic that said that, if you leave out certain things from the training data of an LLM, the LLM becomes, less likely to defect and blackmail and do all those things.
It was mostly writing from less wrong, right?
Less wrong, exactly.
Yes.
Where all these people write, I might have written an article or 6 or 2 at the time, I must say. So my articles were better.
Can you measure how much you've ruined the LLMs with your contribution to less wrong?
Well, my contribution was to say that a measure that becomes a target.
Oh, okay.
Seems to be a good measure. So I feel like I've helped. I must have helped to some degree.
Right. So it's mostly just Eliezer who did the damage, would you say?
Yeah, and it's fanboys and girls. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, so many things that are happening right now are so wild to me, and I feel like we're not even in the wild part of the story yet.
No, we're definitely not. This next story here is on the law side, and this is not necessarily AI dystopia, although it touches on the fringes of game theoretic behavior that helps bring about an AI dystopia. North Carolina man pleads guilty to music streaming fraud aided by artificial intelligence. The United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, announced the guilty plea today of Michael Smith for his role in a scheme to defraud music streaming platforms and musicians of royalty payments. To carry out the scheme, Smith created hundreds of thousands of songs with artificial intelligence and used automated programs called bots to fraudulently stream his AI-generated songs billions of times in an effort to mimic the genuine streaming activity of real consumers. Smith pled guilty today to conspiracy to commit wire fraud before the U.S. District Judge John G. Kotel. Quote, Michael Smith generated thousands of fake songs using artificial intelligence and then streamed those fake songs billions of times, said U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton. Quote, although the songs and listeners were fake, the millions of dollars Smith stole were real. Millions of dollars in royalties that Smith diverted from real, deserving artists and rights holders. Smith's brazen scheme is over as he stands convicted of a federal crime for his AI-assisted fraud. According to the charging documents and statements made in public filings and court proceedings, music can be streamed through music streaming platforms such as Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Each time a song is streamed through one of the streaming platforms, the songwriter who composed the song, a musician who performed it, and in certain cases other rights holders are entitled to a small royalty payments. Royalty payments are made proportionally to musicians and songwriters from a pool of funds. As a result, streaming fraud diverts funds from musicians and songwriters whose songs were legitimately streamed by real consumers to those who use automation to falsely create the appearance of legitimate streaming. Smith created thousands of accounts on the streaming platforms that he could use to stream songs. He then used software to cause the bot accounts to continuously stream songs he owned. Smith spread his automated streams across thousands of songs to avoid anomalous streaming as to any single song, which would likely cause the streaming platforms to discover his scheme. To obtain the necessary number of songs for his scheme to succeed, Smith turned to artificial intelligence, which he used to create hundreds of thousands of AI-generated songs for which he could manipulate the streams. Smith's hundreds of thousands of AI-generated songs were streamed by his bot accounts billions of times, which allowed him to fraudulently obtain more than $8 million in royalties.
Sorry.
8 million. Smith, 54, of Cornelius, North Carolina, pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Now, who did he conspire with? Was it the bots? Smith also agreed to pay $91,843.64 in forfeiture. The maximum potential sentence in this case is prescribed by Congress and provided here for informational purposes only, as any sentencing of the defendant will be determined by the judge. Smith is scheduled to be sentenced by Judge Cottle July 29th, 2026. So that, sir... That, sir, I believe, is sort of a microcosm of what they experience on Facebook, which they call, the dead internet theory, which is that it's now just bots replying to the posts of other bots who are posting content for the bots to consume. Then this guy was well ahead of the game.
I don't believe that's what the dead internet theory was to begin with, but I guess it's evolved now into this.
What did you believe the dead internet theory originally was?
I think the original version of it had to do with, when you Google for something, you see 300 pages of results, right? But if you start clicking through and you get to page 50 or something, it's additional results omitted or whatever. And, there were some, that was kind of the core impulse that was wait, what happened to the other 250 pages of results, and that basically a lot of it was simulated or whatever, but it didn't, it predates LLMs and AIs and much of the botting.
If that's the origin, that origin escaped me. I sort of became aware of dead internet theory when everyone began accusing each other of being bots. But then the biggest example occurred when there was the crab Jesus scenario. I don't know if you recall the crab Jesus scenario, which was when accounts on Facebook using procedural generative AI image creators had started to post religious themed content because that was getting favorable interaction. But then because of a distortion from bots that were also engaging with the content in order to drive up the revenue from the content, the skew on what was being upvoted started to veer more and more towards the absurd, to which you wound up with images that were creating Jesus made out of crabs. And so,
okay.
That is one of the more recent versions of dead internet theory exemplars. So I don't know if your origin story is correct or not. I will take it as correct. But that is, I do believe the more recent incarnations are the bots posting to be replied to by bots, but everyone.
Yeah, I'm reading here on Wikipedia. Where else? It kind of says
source of truth.
It started in 2016. Yes, of course. I mean, for dead internet theory, you kind of have to go to Wikipedia. Whatever is there is the truth by definition. Anyway, so it kind of says that it started in 2016, but then there's the dead internet theory gained renewed interest following the AI boom that began in the 2020s with large language models, chatbots, and text image models emerging. Yada yada yada. But it seems that there's two waves basically, with kind of the AI slop wave having. Dead internet, the dead internet theory. Anyway, but it's pretty wild.
Well, I think that'll be a good place to round out the stories for the day. I'll give a couple minutes to anyone who wants to request to speak, comment, or bring a story to our attention we haven't discussed yet, so we can close out the whole show. We have a lot on the cutting room floor. Alex, I'll give you some titles of things that are left on the cutting room floor. This is from Rolling Stone. AI Ozzy Osbourne avatar will be able to talk to fans this summer because everyone was clamoring for AI Ozzy Osbourne. We have AI Jesus, so why not AI Metal Jesus? That'd be fine. There There's preschool teachers who are being conscribed by AI researchers to wear cameras all day as they teach the preschoolers to use the training video for training data, which is kind of great. So there's a couple things on the cutting room floor. Another one is Musk's AI fails to pay staff $420 for giving their tax returns to Grok, which is apparently an offering that was made by XAI to their employees at one point in time. The brief intro on that story is Elon Musk's XAI asked employees earlier this year to offer up their own tax returns as training data for the company's Grok chatbot, promising $420 payment as incentive for doing so. 2 months later, those payments still haven't materialized. So there's that story. Then there's a longer story on the cutting room floor for today about a particular high school where deep fakes and other sorts of AI generative nude-based technology caused sort of a major uproar with lots of students being affected by its weaponization. So those are things on the cutting room floor. We'll get back to them probably next week. As always, there's always too much to cover. Doesn't look like anyone has any requests to comment or speak, bring up any other stories. So I guess we're going to be closing this one out. Alex, anything you're looking forward to this upcoming week?
I mean, same thing as last week. We got to figure out how this Iran thing is going to play out. Also because apparently they've now threatened that they're going to make it regional. And by regional, they mean Greece. So, because we might be hosting an American base or 6. And the Iranians are not that cool with this somehow for some reason that evades me. So they might be bombing Crete. I don't know. Trump just posted a image of an airplane with a missile that says, "Thank you for your attention to this matter" on it. So no further comment. So I don't know what that means about the peace process. My reading is not great.
At this point, trying to decipher meaning out of a Trump truth post is
what do things mean anyway? Words, images.
I mean, listen. One ear in, one ear out the other. If you pay attention 2 days from now, you're probably more up to date than had you paid attention at the initial thing that he said, right? Things he just says stuff. We know that. He just sort of says it.
No. Well, that's what Maduro said, and then look at him now.
Wait a second. He did not say that. He said,
"Don't worry, be happy. La 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 la."
I rarely get to use that clip, but thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
It's a great way to close out the show.
All right, sir. I hope you have a fantastically dumb week, and I will see you again next Sunday.
See you next Sunday, Gator. Thanks, everybody.